The smoke alarm screamed at 2:47 a.m., and I knew that my life was about to change forever. I just didn't know it would involve a man who'd turn my entire world upside down with nothing but a perfectly raised eyebrow and a taste for medium-rare steak. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Hey, beautiful souls. Welcome back to the channel, or if you're new here, welcome to the chaos that is my life. I'm so glad you're here with me today. Quick question before we dive into this absolute madness. Where in the world are you watching from? Drop your city, state, or country in the comments below. I love seeing how far these stories reach, and honestly, knowing you're out there keeps me going. Also, real talk, have you hit that subscribe button yet? Because if you haven't, you're missing out on stories that'll make you laugh, cry, and question everything you thought you knew about love, trust, and the price of truffle oil. So do me a solid and smash that subscribe button. Your girl needs to know you're riding this roller coaster with me. Now, let me tell you about the night everything changed. I stood in the kitchen of Ember and Sage, the boutique restaurant where I'd been slaving away for 3 years, trying to prove that a black woman with a culinary degree from a state school and zero family connections could make it in this cutthroat industry. The stainless steel counters gleamed under the harsh overhead lights, reflecting my exhausted face back at me, dark circles under my brown eyes, my natural hair tied back in a silk scarf that had seen better days, and a sauce stain on my chef's coat that I was too tired to care about. The kitchen smelled like brown butter, charred rosemary, and broken dreams. I was perfecting a dish that would never make it onto Chef Lauren's menu, a braised short rib with sweet potato puree and a bourbon cherry reduction that tasted like my grandmother's Sunday dinners met a 5-star fantasy. But Laurent didn't do comfort food. He did elevated cuisine, which was code for tiny portions that cost more than your rent. My phone buzzed on the counter. A text from my best friend and sous chef, Maya. "Girl, you still there? Go home. You're spiraling." She wasn't wrong. I'd been spiraling for months, ever since Laurent passed me over for the head chef position and gave it to Kyle, a mediocre white guy whose only talent was making foam out of things that should never be foam. I was about to text her back when I heard it. A knock. Not at the front door, at the back door. The service entrance that only staff and delivery drivers used. At nearly 3 a.m., my heart kicked into overdrive. I grabbed the closest thing that resembled a weapon, a French rolling pin that my grandmother had shipped from Louisiana, and crept toward the door. Through the small window, I could see a figure standing in the alley, backlit by the streetlight, hands in the pockets of what looked like an expensive coat. Every true crime podcast I'd ever binged screamed at me to not open that door. But here's the thing about being exhausted, underpaid, and undervalued: you stop caring about logic. I yanked the door open, rolling pin raised like a baseball bat. "If you're here to rob us, I should warn you, we keep exactly $43 in the register and a wheel of Parmesan that's probably worth more than your car." The man didn't flinch. He just looked at me with these impossibly calm gray eyes that seemed to catalog everything about me in half a second. My defensive stance, my ridiculous weapon, the sauce stain on my coat. Then he smiled. Not a creepy smile. Not a condescending smile. Something different. Like he'd just discovered something fascinating. "Pepper Torres?" His voice was smooth, controlled, with a kind of refinement that came from private schools and European vacations. I tightened my grip on the rolling pin. "Who's asking?" "Someone who's been looking for you." He pulled his hand from his pocket, slowly, deliberately, and held out a business card. Crisp. Expensive cardstock. No logo. Just a name and a phone number. Lincoln Hayes. "I have a proposition for you, Ms. Torres. One that could change your life, if you're willing to take a risk." I stared at the card, then at him. He was probably in his early 30s, with dark hair that looked professionally styled even at this ungodly hour, a jawline sharp enough to cut diamonds, and a charcoal coat that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. Everything about him screamed money, but not in the flashy, desperate way. This was old money. Quiet money. The kind that didn't need to prove anything. "What kind of proposition?" I asked, not lowering the rolling pin. His smile widened slightly. "The kind that involves cooking. Private chef position. Exclusive client. Exceptional pay." "How exceptional?" $15,000 a week. To start." The rolling pin slipped from my fingers and clattered onto the concrete. $15,000 a week. I made $32,000 a year at Ember and Sage. That's... I couldn't find words. That's insane. What's the catch? Am I cooking for the mob? A cult? Someone who wants to eat me? Lincoln Hayes, if that was even his real name, laughed. Actually laughed. It was a rich, genuine sound that seemed completely out of place in a grimy back alley at 3 a.m. Nothing so dramatic. My employer is simply particular. He values talent, creativity, and authenticity. He's been observing the culinary scene in the city for months, and your name kept coming up. My name? I'm literally the least famous chef in this kitchen. Perhaps. But you're the most interesting. There was something in the way he said it, interesting, that sent a shiver down my spine. Not fear. Something else. Anticipation. Danger. The feeling you get right before you do something monumentally stupid or monumentally brilliant. I need details, I said, trying to sound professional despite still wearing my sauce-stained coat and a scarf with tiny pineapples on it. Who is this employer? What kind of food? What are the hours? All questions that will be answered if you accept. But I need your answer now, Ms. Torres. My employer doesn't wait. Now? It's 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. Normal people don't make life-changing decisions at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. Normal people don't become extraordinary, Ms. Torres. He checked his watch, a sleek minimalist piece that probably cost more than a car. You have 60 seconds. Are you serious? 55 seconds. My mind raced. This was insane. This was sketchy. This was probably illegal. This was also $15,000 a week. I thought about Lawrence's condescending smirk when he promoted Kyle. I thought about my apartment with the broken heater and the landlord who kept forgetting to fix it. I thought about my student loans, my mother's medical bills, and the dream I'd had since I was 8 years old of opening my own restaurant. 40 seconds. I thought about the braised short rib cooling on the counter inside, the dish that would never see a menu because it was too rustic for Lawrence's vision. 30 seconds. Screw it. Yes, I said. I'm in. Lincoln Hayes nodded once, as if he'd known my answer all along. Excellent. Be ready tomorrow at 6 p.m. Bring your knives and an open mind. He turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and Ms. Torres? Wear something other than that scarf. My employer appreciates presentation. I looked down at my pineapple scarf, then back up, ready to tell him exactly where he could shove his dress code. But he was already gone. Vanished into the alley like some kind of well-dressed ghost. I stood there in the doorway, the business card clutched in my hand, my heart hammering against my ribs, wondering what the hell I'd just agreed to. The smoke alarm inside started screaming again. I'd forgotten about the reduction on the stove. As I ran back inside to save my sauce, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just made a deal with the devil. Or something far more dangerous. A man who could make me want things I'd spent years convincing myself I didn't need. So here's my question for you, gorgeous people watching this. Have you ever taken a leap of faith that terrified you? Have you ever said yes to something that seemed too good to be true? Drop your stories in the comments. I want to hear about your 3 a.m. decisions, your moments of absolute madness. And seriously, if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? This story is just getting started, and trust me, you do not want to miss what happens when I show up at this mysterious employer's door. Because spoiler alert, nothing in my life would ever be the same again. I didn't sleep. How could I? My mind was a hurricane of questions, possibilities, and the nagging voice of reason that sounded suspiciously like my mother telling me I was about to get murdered by a rich psychopath. At 5:47 a.m., I gave up pretending and called Maya. She answered on the first ring, her voice thick with sleep and concern. Pepper? What's wrong? Are you okay? Define okay, I said, pacing my tiny studio apartment. The morning light was just starting to filter through my curtains, the cheap ones I'd bought at Target 3 years ago that were supposed to be blackout, but were really just vague suggestion of darkness. Oh God. What did you do? Why do you assume I did something? Because I've known you since culinary school, and you only call at dawn when you've either done something brilliant or something catastrophically stupid. There's no in-between with you. She wasn't wrong. I told her everything, the knock at the back door, Lincoln Hayes with his expensive coat and impossible offer, the 60-second deadline, my complete and utter lack of common sense. Silence. Then, $15,000 a week. I know. Girl, you're either about to become a private chef for royalty or you're going to end up in a true crime documentary. Also what I'm thinking. Did you Google him? Lincoln Hayes. I hadn't. I'd been too busy spiraling. Maya's keyboard clicked through the phone. Okay, searching. Oh. What? What is it? Lincoln Hayes is a real person. He's like a fixer for wealthy people. Seriously wealthy. We're talking private jets, international business deals, the kind of rich where they don't even have social media because they don't need social media. My stomach did a complicated flip. So this is real. Either real or the most elaborate scam in history. Pepper, you need to be careful. People like that don't just hand out $15,000 a week for cooking. There's always a catch. I know, I whispered, staring at the business card I'd propped against my coffee maker. The paper seemed to glow in the morning light, taunting me with possibility. Are you still going? Maya asked softly. I thought about my life. Really thought about it. I was 28 years old. I graduated top of my class from culinary school, spent 2 years working 80-hour weeks in restaurant kitchens where head chefs threw pans when they were angry and made grown men cry over improperly diced onions. I'd endured sexual harassment from entitled customers who thought a black woman in a chef's coat was there for their entertainment. I'd watched less talented people get promoted because they knew the right people, wore the right clothes, said the right things. I'd played by the rules my entire life, and where had it gotten me? A studio apartment in a questionable neighborhood, student loan debt that would follow me to my grave, and a boss who thought my grandmother's recipes were too ethnic for his menu. Yeah, I said finally. I'm still going. Then I'm coming with you. I'll wait in the car like your getaway driver. If you're not out in an hour, I'm calling the police. Maya. Non-negotiable, Pepper. You're my best friend, and I'm not letting you walk into a potentially dangerous situation alone. Plus, someone needs to identify your body if this goes wrong. You're so comforting. It's one of my many talents. At 5:45 p.m., I stood in front of my closet, experiencing a full-blown existential crisis about what one wears to meet a mysterious employer who might or might not be a billionaire criminal. My wardrobe was not built for this moment. I had 3 pairs of jeans, various levels of worn, 5 t-shirts with cooking puns on them, 2 sundresses I'd bought for job interviews that never led anywhere, and approximately 17 chef's coats in different stages of staining. The black dress, Maya said from her perch on my bed. She'd shown up an hour early with coffee and moral support. It says, I'm professional but also I could kill you with a paring knife if necessary. I pulled out the black sheath dress, the one I'd worn to my culinary school graduation and precisely 2 other times. It was simple, elegant, and made me feel like I was playing dress-up as a grown-up. But when I put it on and looked in the mirror, something shifted. I looked different. Not like Pepper Torres, the overworked line cook who survived on coffee and spite. Like someone who belonged in rooms with $15,000 a week jobs. I paired it with the only nice shoes I owned, black flats that were comfortable enough to work in if needed, and pulled my natural hair into an elegant low bun. Subtle makeup. Small gold hoop earrings my grandmother had given me. Damn, Maya said softly. You look like you're about to change your life. Or end it, I muttered, but I smiled. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Car arriving in 5 minutes. Address, 1247, Lakewood Drive. LH. Lakewood Drive. The neighborhood where houses started at $3 million and went up from there. Holy shit, Maya breathed, reading over my shoulder. Pepper, this is real. This is really real. My hands shook as I grabbed my knife roll, the professional-grade set I'd saved for months to buy, each blade an extension of my hands, my creativity, my identity. If I was walking into the unknown, I was walking in armed with the only weapons I trusted. Ready? Maya asked, car keys already in hand. I took one last look at my apartment, at the tiny kitchen where I'd experimented with recipes at midnight, at the walls covered in food magazine clippings and dreams, at the life I'd built from nothing but determination and student loans. Ready, I lied. The house wasn't a house. It was an estate. A compound. An architectural statement that screamed wealth so loudly it didn't need to make a sound. Maya's beat-up Honda looked absurd in the circular driveway, parked next to what I was pretty sure was a vintage Aston Martin and a Tesla that probably cost more than my entire culinary education. "I'm going to wait right here," Maya said, her eyes wide as she took in the three-story modern masterpiece of glass, steel, and stone. "If you're not out in an hour." "Police." "I know." I squeezed her hand. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Just don't die." "I'll try my best." I walked up the stone pathway, my knife roll clutched in both hands like a shield. The front door was massive, dark wood with a modern steel handle, and before I could even knock, it swung open. Lincoln Hayes stood there, looking exactly as composed as he had in the alley. This time he wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my car. "Ms. Torres." "Punctual." "Excellent." His eyes flicked to my dress, my hair, my knife roll. "Much better than the pineapple scarf." "I'm really never going to live that down, am I?" "Probably not." He stepped aside. "Please come in." I walked into the foyer and immediately felt like I'd stepped into another dimension. The interior was all clean lines, expensive art, and the kind of minimalist luxury that only truly wealthy people could pull off. A floating staircase led to the upper floors. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of a manicured garden that probably had its own full-time staff. But what caught my attention was the smell. Underneath the faint scent of expensive wood and leather, I detected something else: vanilla, brown sugar, and cardamom? Someone had been baking. "The kitchen is this way," Lincoln said, leading me through a hallway lined with what looked like original artwork. I recognized a Basquiat. A real Basquiat. Sweet Jesus, what had I walked into? The kitchen was a chef's fever dream. Professional-grade everything, a wolf range with 8 burners, double ovens that probably cost more than a luxury car, a sub-zero refrigerator you could hide a body in, marble countertops that gleamed under perfect pendant lighting, and enough space to cook for a small army. But what made my heart stutter was the collection of tools arranged on the counter with surgical precision: a complete set of Japanese knives, copper pots in graduated sizes, a pasta maker I'd only seen in magazines, and spices in glass jars labeled in perfect handwriting. Someone who understood cooking had designed this kitchen. "Impressive, isn't it?" The voice came from behind me, deep, smooth, with an edge of amusement that made my skin prickle with awareness. I turned around. And there he was. The mysterious employer. The man behind the $15,000 offer. The reason I was standing in a kitchen that probably cost more than most people's houses. He was younger than I expected, maybe 32, 33, with dark hair that fell slightly over his forehead, sharp cheekbones, and eyes the color of expensive whiskey. He wore dark jeans and a simple black Henley that somehow made him look both casual and devastating. But it was the way he looked at me that made my breath catch. Like he could see through all my carefully constructed walls. Like he knew exactly who I was beneath the professional dress and the composed expression. Like I was a puzzle he intended to solve. "Pepper Torres," he said, and hearing my name in his voice felt dangerous. "I'm Jason. Jason Thorne. Welcome to your new kitchen." He extended his hand. I stared at it for a moment, this simple gesture that would seal whatever insane deal I'd walked into. Then I shook it. His hand was warm, his grip firm but not aggressive, and the moment our palms touched, I felt it, a jolt of electricity that had nothing to do with static and everything to do with the way his eyes darkened slightly, like he'd felt it too. "Mr. Thorne," I started. "Jason," he corrected. "We're going to be spending a lot of time together, Ms. Torres. Formality seems unnecessary." "Then call me Pepper." His lips curved into a smile that was absolutely unfair. "Pepper. I like that. Spicy." I refused to blush. I absolutely refused. I totally blushed. Lincoln Hayes cleared his throat from the doorway. "I'll leave you two to discuss the arrangement. Jason, try not to terrify her on the first day." "I make no promises," Jason said, his eyes never leaving mine. Lincoln left, and suddenly the enormous kitchen felt much, much smaller. Jason moved to the counter, gesturing for me to follow. "So, Pepper, I'm sure you have questions." "About 1,000. Ask." "Why me? I'm not famous. I don't have a Michelin star. I'm not even a head chef." "No," he agreed. But you're talented. Really talented. I've been eating at Ember and Sage for 6 months, trying every dish on the menu. The only ones worth remembering were yours. Your braised short rib? Your bourbon cherry reduction? That wasn't just cooking, Pepper. That was storytelling. That was soul. My heart hammered. You've been watching me? Observing, he corrected. There's a difference. I don't hire people based on resumes and credentials. I hire based on potential, passion, and authenticity. You have all three. And you need a private chef because... His expression shifted, something complicated passing across his features. Vulnerability. Loneliness. Because I'm tired of eating food that tastes like obligation. I want food that makes me feel something. I want someone who cooks like they're putting their heart on the plate. The raw honesty in his voice caught me off guard. This wasn't just about hiring a chef. This was about something deeper. Something broken in him that he thought food could fix. I understood that. I'd been using cooking to fix my own broken pieces for years. What exactly would this job entail? I asked, trying to sound professional despite the fact that my pulse was doing complicated things. You'd cook for me. 3 meals a day, 7 days a week. You'd have access to this kitchen, unlimited budget for ingredients, complete creative freedom. The only requirement is that you cook food that's real, honest. No pretension. No foam. I laughed despite myself. No foam. I despise foam. It's food lying about what it is. I think I might love you, I said, then immediately wanted to die. Jason's smile turned absolutely wicked. Give it time, Pepper. Give it time. Oh no. This man was going to be a problem. So let me get this straight, I said, leaning against the marble counter because my legs suddenly felt unreliable. You want me to cook 3 meals a day, 7 days a week, with complete creative freedom and an unlimited budget. And you're paying me $15,000 a week for this. Correct. And there's no catch? No weird requests? You're not going to ask me to cook endangered animals or make dishes while wearing a banana costume or... Pepper. Jason's lips twitched with amusement. I assure you, my requests are entirely normal. Well, mostly normal. Mostly. He moved closer, and I caught his scent, something expensive and understated, like cedar and bergamot. I have certain preferences. Standards. I'm what people politely call particular, and what most people call impossible. So you're a control freak. I prefer discerning. That's just a fancy word for control freak. His laugh was genuine, surprised. You're not afraid of me. Should I be? Most people are. He said it matter-of-factly, without ego. Like he was stating the weather. Most people see the money, the house, the reputation, and they treat me like I'm made of glass. Or worse, like I'm a walking ATM. Well, I don't know anything about your reputation, I admitted. And honestly? Money doesn't impress me. Good knife skills impress me. Perfectly seared scallops impress me. Money just is. Something shifted in his expression, a wall lowering, a guard dropping. That's exactly why you're here. Before I could respond, he gestured to the refrigerator. I'd like to see what you can do. Right now. Surprise me. My chef instincts kicked in immediately. You want me to cook? Now. Consider it an audition. Show me why I should trust you with my meals for the foreseeable future. I thought you already decided to hire me? I did. But I want to see you work. I want to see how you move in a kitchen, how you think, how you create under pressure. He checked his watch, another expensive piece that probably cost more than my rent for a year. You have 45 minutes. Make me something that tells me who you are. Challenge accepted. I set my knife roll on the counter and unzipped it with the reverence of a samurai unsheathing a sword. My knives, the tools I'd saved for, cared for, trusted with every dish I'd ever created. Can I see what you have? I asked, moving toward the massive refrigerator. Everything you need should be there. I had Lincoln stock it based on your preferences. I froze with my hand on the handle. My preferences? How do you know? I told you. I've been observing. He settled onto a bar stool at the kitchen island, his posture relaxed but his eyes sharp. Watching. Analyzing. I know you prefer fresh herbs over dried. I know you have a weakness for citrus. I know you believe butter makes everything better and that you think molecular gastronomy is pretentious nonsense. He wasn't wrong about any of it. I opened the refrigerator and my jaw actually dropped. It was a chef's fantasy, fresh produce organized by color, premium meats and fish, artisanal cheeses, fresh herbs still in their pots, exotic ingredients I'd only dreamed of working with. Everything pristine, perfect, waiting. Okay, I breathed. This is insane. Is that a problem? No. I grabbed ingredients with the efficiency of years of professional cooking. Chicken thighs, fresh thyme, lemons, garlic, baby potatoes, asparagus. This is perfect. Because if Jason Thorne wanted to see who I was through food, I was going to give him the most honest dish I knew, my grandmother's lemon herb roasted chicken, elevated but not pretentious. Comfort food with technique. Soul food with sophistication. The food that made me fall in love with cooking in the first place. I moved through his kitchen like I'd been there for years, finding everything by instinct, the right pan, the perfect cutting board, a bowl for mixing. My hands worked automatically, trimming, seasoning, prepping. Tell me about your grandmother, Jason said suddenly. I looked up from mincing garlic. What? You're cooking her recipe. I can tell by the way you're moving, like you're remembering something precious. Tell me about her. How did he do that? How did he see through me so easily? Her name was Doris, I said softly, my knife finding its rhythm against the cutting board. Everyone called her Miss Dot. She raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 6. I'm sorry. Don't be. She gave me the best childhood I could have asked for. Her house always smelled like something amazing, gumbo jambalaya, peach cobbler, fried chicken that could make you weep with joy. I smiled at the memory. She taught me that cooking isn't just about following recipes. It's about love. It's about taking care of people. It's about creating moments they'll remember forever. Is she still? She passed 3 years ago. Breast cancer. The words still hurt, but less than they used to. The last thing she told me was to never let anyone make me small. To never apologize for taking up space. To cook like I had something to say and make sure people listened. The kitchen was quiet except for the sound of my knife, the sizzle as I heated oil in the pan. She sounds remarkable, Jason said quietly. She was. I looked up and met his eyes. She would have loved this kitchen. She would have cooked a feast that would make you cry. Then cook one for me. In her honor. Something about the way he said it, so genuine, so respectful, made my chest tighten. I turned back to my work, seasoning the chicken with salt, pepper, lemon zest, and fresh thyme. As I worked, I felt Jason's eyes on me. Not creepy. Not predatory. Just intensely focused. Like I was the most interesting thing in the world. It should have made me nervous. Instead, it made me cook better. I seared the chicken skin side down, listening for that perfect crackling sound that meant I'd gotten the temperature right. I tossed baby potatoes in olive oil and garlic. I prepped the asparagus with lemon and sea salt. So let me get this straight, I said, leaning against the marble counter because my legs suddenly felt unreliable. You want me to cook 3 meals a day, 7 days a week, with complete creative freedom and an unlimited budget. And you're paying me $15,000 a week for this. Correct. And there's no catch? No weird requests. You're not going to ask me to cook endangered animals or make dishes while wearing a banana costume or... Pepper. Jason's lips twitched with amusement. I assure you, my requests are entirely normal. Well, mostly normal. Mostly. He moved closer, and I caught his scent, something expensive and understated, like cedar and bergamot. I have certain preferences. Standards. I'm what people politely call particular, and what most people call impossible. So you're a control freak. I prefer discerning. That's just a fancy word for control freak. His laugh was genuine, surprised. You're not afraid of me. Should I be? Most people are. He said it matter-of-factly, without ego. Like he was stating the weather. Most people see the money, the house, the reputation, and they treat me like I'm made of glass. Or worse, like I'm a walking ATM. Well, I don't know anything about your reputation, I admitted. And honestly, money doesn't impress me. Good knife skills impress me. Perfectly seared scallops impress me. Money just is. Something shifted in his expression, a wall lowering, a guard dropping. That's exactly why you're here. Before I could respond, he gestured to the refrigerator. I'd like to see what you can do. Right now. Surprise me. My chef instincts kicked in immediately. You want me to cook? Now. Consider it an audition. Show me why I should trust you with my meals for the foreseeable future. I thought you already decided to hire me? I did. But I want to see you work. I want to see how you move in a kitchen, how you think, how you create under pressure. He checked his watch, another expensive piece that probably cost more than my rent for a year. You have 45 minutes. Make me something that tells me who you are. Challenge accepted. I set my knife roll on the counter and unzipped it with the reverence of a samurai unsheathing a sword. My knives, the tools I'd saved for, cared for, trusted with every dish I'd ever created. Can I see what you have? I asked, moving toward the massive refrigerator. Everything you need should be there. I had Lincoln stock it based on your preferences. I froze with my hand on the handle. My preferences? How do you know? I told you. I've been observing. He settled onto a bar stool at the kitchen island, his posture relaxed but his eyes sharp. Watching. Analyzing. I know you prefer fresh herbs over dried. I know you have a weakness for citrus. I know you believe butter makes everything better and that you think molecular gastronomy is pretentious nonsense. He wasn't wrong about any of it. I opened the refrigerator and my jaw actually dropped. It was a chef's fantasy, fresh produce organized by color, premium meats and fish, artisanal cheeses, fresh herbs still in their pots, exotic ingredients I'd only dreamed of working with. Everything pristine, perfect, waiting. Okay, I breathed. This is insane. Is that a problem? No. I grabbed ingredients with the efficiency of years of professional cooking. Chicken thighs, fresh thyme, lemons, garlic, baby potatoes, asparagus. This is perfect. Because if Jason Thorne wanted to see who I was through food, I was going to give him the most honest dish I knew, my grandmother's lemon herb roasted chicken, elevated but not pretentious. Comfort food with technique. Soul food with sophistication. The food that made me fall in love with cooking in the first place. I moved through his kitchen like I'd been there for years, finding everything by instinct, the right pan, the perfect cutting board, a bowl for mixing. My hands worked automatically, trimming, seasoning, prepping. Tell me about your grandmother, Jason said suddenly. I looked up from mincing garlic. What? You're cooking her recipe. I can tell by the way you're moving, like you're remembering something precious. Tell me about her. How did he do that? How did he see through me so easily? Her name was Doris, I said softly, my knife finding its rhythm against the cutting board. Everyone called her Miss Dot. She raised me after my parents died in a car accident when I was 6. I'm sorry. Don't be. She gave me the best childhood I could have asked for. Her house always smelled like something amazing, gumbo jambalaya, peach cobbler, fried chicken that could make you weep with joy. I smiled at the memory. She taught me that cooking isn't just about following recipes. It's about love. It's about taking care of people. It's about creating moments they'll remember forever. Is she still? She passed 3 years ago. Breast cancer. The words still hurt, but less than they used to. The last thing she told me was to never let anyone make me small. To never apologize for taking up space. To cook like I had something to say and make sure people listened. The kitchen was quiet except for the sound of my knife, the sizzle as I heated oil in the pan. She sounds remarkable, Jason said quietly. She was. I looked up and met his eyes. She would have loved this kitchen. She would have cooked a feast that would make you cry. Then cook one for me. In her honor. Something about the way he said it, so genuine, so respectful, made my chest tighten. I turned back to my work, seasoning the chicken with salt, pepper, lemon zest, and fresh thyme. As I worked, I felt Jason's eyes on me. Not creepy. Not predatory. Just intensely focused. Like I was the most interesting thing in the world. It should have made me nervous. Instead, it made me cook better. I seared the chicken skin side down, listening for that perfect crackling sound that meant I'd gotten the temperature right. I tossed baby potatoes in olive oil and garlic. I prepped the asparagus with lemon and sea salt. And if I was being honest with myself, it meant proximity to the most interesting person I'd met in years. What about my job at Ember and Sage? I asked. You'll quit. Tonight. Lincoln will handle any contractual obligations. You can't just. Pepper. He stood, moving around the island until he was close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. I'm offering you a life-changing opportunity. A chance to cook without constraints, to develop your craft, to build your reputation. I'm offering you freedom. Freedom. I laughed, but it sounded shaky. You're asking me to move into your house, cook for you every day, be at your beck and call. I'm asking you to trust me. I don't know you. Then get to know me. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a key, sleek, modern, expensive-looking. This is the key to the guest house. Take it. Think about it. Decide by tomorrow morning. I stared at the key in his outstretched hand. This was insane. This was reckless. This was everything my rational brain screamed at me not to do. But when I looked into Jason Thorne's eyes, I didn't see danger. I saw possibility. I took the key. Our fingers brushed, and that electric jolt hit me again, stronger this time, unmistakable. Jason's breath hitched almost imperceptibly. You feel that? I don't know what you're talking about, I lied. His smile was slow, knowing, devastating. Liar. Before I could respond, the kitchen door swung open and Lincoln appeared, his expression carefully neutral. Ms. Torres's friend is becoming concerned. She's called twice. Oh God. Maya. I'd completely forgotten about her waiting in the car. I should go, I said quickly, stepping back from Jason and immediately missing his proximity. I need to think. Process. Make a rational decision like a rational adult. Take all the time you need, Jason said. But Pepper? I think we both know you've already decided. He was right. Damn him, he was right. I grabbed my knife roll and practically fled the kitchen, Lincoln escorting me to the door with the professionalism of someone who'd witnessed this exact scenario 1,000 times before. Maya's Honda was still in the driveway, and the moment I slid into the passenger seat, she grabbed my shoulders. What happened? Are you okay? Did he try anything? Do I need to call the police? Why are you holding a key? Drive, I said. Drive and I'll explain everything. As Maya pulled out of the circular driveway, I looked back at the house, that beautiful, terrifying monument to wealth and mystery. Jason stood in the window, watching me leave. Even from a distance, I could feel the weight of his gaze. And in my pocket, the key to the guest house felt like it was burning a hole through my dress. That night, lying in my studio apartment for what might be the last time, I pulled out my phone and did what I should have done from the beginning. I Googled Jason Thorne. And immediately wished I hadn't. Because the man who'd hired me, the man who'd eaten my grandmother's chicken recipe with something close to reverence, wasn't just wealthy. He was a billionaire. Tech industry. Startup acquisitions. Venture capital. Net worth estimated at somewhere north of $2 billion. $2 billion. There were photos, Jason at charity galas in tuxedos that probably cost more than my car. Jason shaking hands with celebrities and politicians. Jason looking devastatingly handsome and completely untouchable. But what caught my attention was an article from 3 years ago. Tech billionaire Jason Thorne announces hiatus following personal tragedy. I clicked it. The article was sparse on details, but it mentioned a devastating loss and Jason's subsequent withdrawal from public life. He'd stopped attending events, stopped doing interviews, stopped being seen anywhere except occasional business meetings. He'd disappeared. And now, 3 years later, he was hiring a private chef who cooked food that tasted like love. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Did you Google me yet? My heart stopped. I typed back, how did you know? His response was immediate, because I would have done the same thing. Did you find what you were looking for? I found more questions than answers. Good. Questions are more interesting than answers. See you tomorrow morning, Pepper. 6 a.m. Don't be late. I stared at my phone, at the key on my nightstand, at the life I'd built in this tiny apartment. And I knew with absolute certainty that tomorrow morning I would pack my bags, quit my job, and walk into Jason Thorne's world. Because some opportunities don't knock twice. And some men don't look at you like you're the answer to questions they've been asking for years. I just hoped I wasn't making the biggest mistake of my life. I arrived at Jason's estate at 5:47 a.m. with 2 suitcases, my knife roll, a box of my grandmother's recipe cards, and a sense of impending doom that Maya had helpfully reinforced during the entire drive over. "You're insane," she'd said for the 14th time as she helped me load my life into her Honda. "You're moving in with a billionaire you met 48 hours ago. A billionaire, Pepper. Do you understand how many true crime documentaries start exactly like this?" "At least 7, I'd muttered, because I'd watched them all during my sleepless night. "And you're still going?" "I'm still going." She'd hugged me so tight I couldn't breathe. "Text me every hour. If I don't hear from you, I'm calling the FBI, the CIA, and Oprah." "Why Oprah?" "Because Oprah fixes everything." Now, standing in front of the guest house with the key Jason had given me, I took a deep breath and unlocked the door. The guest house was nicer than anywhere I'd ever lived. It was a converted carriage house, exposed brick, floor-to-ceiling windows, an open-concept living space with a kitchen, smaller than Jason's but still professional grade, a bedroom with a king-sized bed that looked like a cloud, and a bathroom with a rainfall shower that probably used more water than my entire apartment building. Everything was decorated in soft neutrals with pops of color, teal throw pillows, copper accents, fresh flowers on the counter. On the kitchen island sat a handwritten note on expensive stationery. "Welcome home, Pepper. Coffee's in the cabinet, beans are fresh. Your first assignment, breakfast at 6:30. Surprise me again. Eh?" I smiled despite my nerves. Then I checked the time, 5:52 a.m. 38 minutes to create a breakfast that would justify my $15,000 a week salary. No pressure. I showed up at Jason's back door at exactly 6:29 a.m. carrying a tray with French toast made from brioche I'd found in his ridiculous refrigerator, topped with macerated strawberries, fresh whipped cream, and a drizzle of real maple syrup. Alongside it, perfectly crispy bacon, scrambled eggs with chives and creme fraiche, and fresh squeezed orange juice. Comfort food. Elevated. Honest. Jason answered the door in running clothes, athletic shorts and a fitted t-shirt that revealed he was not just wealthy but also apparently sculpted by some kind of personal trainer who took their job very seriously. His hair was damp with sweat, his breathing slightly elevated, and there was something unfairly attractive about seeing him disheveled. "You run?" I asked, because my brain-to-mouth filter hadn't kicked in yet. "Every morning. 6 miles. He looked at the tray, and his expression softened. "Is that French toast?" "Brioche French toast with macerated strawberries and..." "When was the last time someone made me French toast?" He said it quietly, almost to himself, as he took the tray and led me inside. The house looked different in daylight, less imposing, more lived in. There were books stacked on side tables, a laptop open on the couch, reading glasses abandoned on the coffee table. Signs of a real person living a real life. Jason set the tray on his dining table, a massive piece of reclaimed wood that probably cost more than a car, and sat down. He didn't wait, didn't make small talk, just cut into the French toast and took a bite. His eyes closed. "This is dangerous," he murmured. "The French toast. You." He opened his eyes and looked at me with an intensity that made my skin feel too tight. "You cook like you're trying to heal people. Do you know that?" I didn't know what to say to that. "My mother used to make French toast," he continued, his voice softer than I'd heard it. "Before she got sick. Before everything fell apart. She'd make it on Sunday mornings and we'd eat it on the porch and pretend we were a normal family." There was so much pain in those words, so much history I didn't understand. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "Don't be. Just keep cooking like this. Keep making food that reminds me there are good things in the world." Something in my chest cracked open. This wasn't just a job. This was something else entirely. The first week established a pattern. I'd wake at 5:30 a.m., create breakfast, deliver it to Jason's dining room. Sometimes he'd be there, freshly showered from his run, asking me questions about ingredients or techniques. Sometimes he'd be on a conference call in his office, and I'd leave the tray and find it empty an hour later with a note, "Perfect. Thank you." Lunch was at noon, always something lighter. Salads with grilled chicken and homemade dressings. Grain bowls with roasted vegetables. Sandwiches on fresh-baked bread that I made in his ridiculously well-equipped kitchen. Dinner was at 7, and that's when things got interesting. Because Jason didn't just eat dinner. He experienced it. He'd sit at the kitchen island while I cooked, watching every move, asking questions, occasionally offering observations that revealed he knew far more about food than he'd let on. "You're searing that too hot," he'd say, and I'd bristle until I realized he was right. "The acid balance is off," he'd mention, and I'd taste it and discover he had a palate that rivaled professional chefs. "You're thinking too hard. Trust your instincts." That one surprised me. "How do you know I'm thinking too hard?" "Because you get this little crease between your eyebrows when you're second-guessing yourself." He'd smiled. "It's distracting." Distracting. Very. The banter became a game. A dance. A way of communicating that felt dangerous and thrilling and completely inappropriate for an employer-employee relationship. But neither of us acknowledged it. We just kept circling each other like two people trying not to touch a live wire. On day 8, Lincoln appeared in the kitchen while I was prepping dinner. "Ms. Torres, a moment?" I looked up from dicing onions. "Is something wrong?" "On the contrary. Jason is very pleased with your work." He adjusted his already perfect tie. "However, I wanted to make you aware of certain parameters." Parameters. Jason values his privacy. Intensely. What happens in this house, what you observe, what you learn about him, it stays confidential. "I'll need you to sign a non-disclosure agreement." My knife stilled. "You want me to sign an NDA?" "It's standard for his household staff. You'll be compensated additionally for the inconvenience. $5,000. $5,000 to promise I wouldn't tell anyone about Jason's life." "What exactly does he think I'm going to see?" I asked carefully. Lincoln's expression remained neutral. "Jason is a very private person who has been hurt by people exploiting his trust. The NDA protects both of you. I suggest you read it carefully before signing." He placed a folder on the counter and left. I stared at it for a long moment before opening it. The NDA was extensive, pages of legal jargon that basically said I couldn't discuss anything about Jason's personal life, his business, his habits, his home, or anything else I might learn during my employment. Violation would result in immediate termination and potential legal action. It felt wrong. Like he was expecting me to betray him. But I also understood it. When you were worth billions, everyone wanted something from you. Everyone had an angle. I signed it. Because despite the warning bells, despite the obvious power imbalance, despite every rational reason to be cautious, I wanted to stay. I wanted to know Jason Thorne. The real version, not the billionaire in the photos. That night, I made him coco vin, a dish that required patience, precision, and a willingness to trust the process. Jason watched from his usual perch at the island, a glass of the same burgundy I was using to braise the chicken in his hand. "Lincoln told you about the NDA," he said. Not a question. He did. And I signed it. I didn't look up from the pot. But I have a question. Ask. Why do you assume I'd betray your trust? Silence. When I finally looked up, Jason's expression was complicated, hurt and defensive and something like shame. "Because everyone does, eventually," he said quietly. "They see the money, the house, the lifestyle, and they decide I'm not a person. I'm an opportunity. A story to sell. A connection to exploit. I'm not everyone." "I know." He set down his glass and moved closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne, feel the heat of his body. "That's what terrifies me." My breath caught. "Why does that terrify you?" "Because I want to trust you, Pepper. I want to believe you're different. But wanting something doesn't make it true." The vulnerability in his voice broke something in me. I set down my spoon and turned to face him fully. I don't care about your money, Jason. I care about the fact that you eat my food like it's the first good thing you've tasted in years. I care about the way you actually listen when I talk about cooking instead of just waiting for your turn to speak. I care about the person who remembers his mother's French toast and still gets emotional about it. Pepper. I'm not going to betray you. Not for money, not for fame, not for anything. Because betraying you would mean betraying myself, and I've worked too hard to become someone I'm proud of to throw it away now. The kitchen was silent except for the gentle bubble of wine and chicken in the pot. Jason stared at me like I just said something in a foreign language he was desperately trying to translate. Then he reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, a gesture so intimate, so unexpected, that my heart stopped. You're dangerous, he whispered. So are you. His thumb brushed my cheekbone, and I watched his pupils dilate, watched him lean closer, watched the moment he decided to. The timer went off. We both jumped back like we'd been electrocuted. Dinner's ready, I said, my voice embarrassingly breathy. Right. Dinner. Jason ran a hand through his hair, looking as shaken as I felt. I should. I'll set the table. He fled the kitchen. I stood there, gripping the counter, my heart hammering, my skin still tingling where he touched me. This was bad. This was so bad. Because I was falling for my employer, a billionaire who'd hired me to cook food that healed him, who looked at me like I was the answer to every question he'd forgotten how to ask, who touched me like I was something precious. And the worst part? I was pretty sure he was falling too. The next morning, I found a note with breakfast. We need to talk about boundaries. Dinner tonight, 7 p.m. Come prepared to be honest. I stared at the note, my stomach in knots. Boundaries. Right. The thing we'd been ignoring since the moment we met. I texted Maya, I think I'm in trouble. Her response was immediate. What kind of trouble? The falling for my billionaire boss kind. Oh my God. I knew it. Details. Now. I sent her a summary of the almost kiss, the touching, the way Jason looked at me like I was the only person in the world. Her response made me laugh despite my panic. Girl, you better make him the best dinner of his life and then have the most honest conversation two people have ever had. Because if you don't deal with this now, it's going to explode later, and explosions are messy. She was right. So that night, I cooked the most honest meal I knew how to make, my grandmother's gumbo. The recipe I'd learned at 8 years old, standing on a step stool beside her stove, learning that cooking was about more than just feeding people, it was about loving them. When I carried the pot into the dining room at exactly 7 p.m., Jason was already there, wearing dark jeans and a gray Henley that made his eyes look like smoke. He stood when I entered. Pepper. Jason. I set down the pot. We need to talk. We do. But first we eat. Because this conversation requires gumbo. His lips quirked. Does it? Trust me. I served us both, the rich, complex broth filled with andouille sausage, chicken, and okra. The smell alone was enough to make you homesick for a place you'd never been. Jason took a bite, and his eyes widened. This is my grandmother's recipe. The one she made when things were hard and we needed to remember that we were loved. I met his eyes. I cook this for people I care about. The implication hung in the air between us. Pepper, Jason said carefully, I need you to understand something. I didn't hire you because I wanted to seduce you or manipulate you or blur any lines. I hired you because you're genuinely talented and I needed someone who cooked with soul. I know. But somewhere along the way, something changed. He set down his spoon. You walked into my life and suddenly food tasted like something again. Mornings felt like something again. I felt like something again. My throat tightened. Jason. I'm attracted to you. Deeply. And I think you're attracted to me. But I'm also your employer, which means there's a power imbalance that makes any relationship between us inherently complicated. So what do we do? I asked quietly. He was silent for a long moment, his expression torn. We have 3 options. 1. We ignore this and maintain a strictly professional relationship. 2. You quit and we explore whatever this is without the complication of employment. 3. We acknowledge this, set clear boundaries, and figure it out as we go. What do you want? I asked. I want to be selfish. I want to pull you into my arms right now and kiss you until neither of us can think straight. I want to cook with you and laugh with you and learn everything about you. His voice dropped. But I don't want to hurt you. And power imbalances hurt people. I stood up, walked around the table, and stopped directly in front of him. Jason, look at me. He did. I'm a grown woman who makes her own choices. I'm not some naive girl who can be manipulated or controlled. If I wanted to leave, I'd leave. If I wanted to stay and keep things professional, I'd do that. I took a breath. But what I want is option 3. I want to see where this goes. And yes, it's complicated and messy and probably a terrible idea. But the best things in life usually are. Jason stood slowly, his eyes searching mine. You're sure? I'm terrified, but I'm sure. He cupped my face in both hands, his touch gentle and reverent. Then we do this right. We're honest with each other. We communicate. And the moment either of us feels uncomfortable or pressured, we stop. Agreed. Agreed. And Pepper? This doesn't change your job. You're still my chef. You're still getting paid. You still have complete autonomy and respect. I know. His thumb brushed my lower lip, and my breath hitched. I'm going to kiss you now, he whispered. If that's okay. It's very okay. Jason Thorne kissed me like I was the answer to a prayer he'd been saying for years. Gentle at first, testing, exploring, learning. Then deeper as I responded, my hands fisting in his shirt, his arms pulling me closer until there was no space between us. He tasted like gumbo and wine and possibility. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jason rested his forehead against mine. This is going to be complicated, he murmured. Probably. People will talk. Let them. I don't want to mess this up. Then don't. I smiled. And feed me. I'm starving, and that gumbo isn't going to eat itself. He laughed, full and genuine and beautiful, and pulled me back to the table. We ate gumbo and talked for hours. About his childhood, my grandmother, his failed relationships, my culinary school disasters, his fears, my dreams. And somewhere between the third bowl and midnight, I realized I'd made a choice that would change everything. I'd chosen the complicated, messy, terrifying path. I'd chosen Jason Thorne. Now I just had to hope it wouldn't destroy us both. The next 3 weeks were the happiest of my life. And that should have been my first warning. Jason and I fell into a rhythm that felt both natural and impossible. I'd cook, he'd watch. We'd eat together, talking about everything and nothing. Sometimes he'd pull me into his arms in the kitchen and kiss me until the timer went off. Sometimes we'd just sit in comfortable silence, his hand finding mine across the table. He never pressured me. Never pushed for more than I was ready to give. Every step forward was a mutual decision, discussed and agreed upon like we were negotiating a treaty instead of falling in love. Because that's what was happening. I was falling in love with Jason Thorne. The real version, not the billionaire, not the mysterious employer, but the man who did the New York Times crossword every morning in pen, who had a weakness for bad action movies, who fell asleep reading philosophy books and left them scattered around the house like breadcrumbs to his thoughts. The man who looked at me like I'd hung the moon. Maya was thrilled and terrified in equal measure. This is either going to be the greatest love story ever told or the most spectacular disaster, she'd said during one of our daily phone calls. There's no in-between with you. She wasn't wrong. But I was too happy to care about the warnings my rational brain kept screaming. Until the night everything shattered. It started innocently enough. Jason had a business dinner, something he couldn't get out of, some investors he needed to schmooze. He'd apologized profusely, kissed me goodbye, and promised to be home by 10. Make yourself comfortable, he'd said, gesturing to the house. Watch a movie, raid the wine cellar, do whatever you want. Mi casa es su casa. So I did something I'd been curious about for weeks. I explored. Not snooping, just looking. Trying to understand the man I was falling for by understanding the space he'd created. The house was full of contradictions. Minimalist design with bursts of color. Expensive art next to photographs that looked like they'd been taken on a disposable camera. Books on everything from quantum physics to French poetry. I found his office on the second floor, A room I'd never been invited into. The door was open. I should have walked away. Should have respected his privacy. Should have remembered that boundaries were important even in relationships built on trust. But curiosity is a powerful thing. I stepped inside. The office was beautiful, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the garden, a massive desk made of dark wood, built-in bookshelves filled with leather-bound volumes. Everything meticulously organized, perfectly placed. Except for one thing. A photograph on his desk, face down. My heart hammered as I approached it. Every instinct screamed at me to leave it alone, but my hand moved of its own accord, turning the frame over. The photograph showed Jason, younger, maybe 25, with his arm around a woman. She was beautiful, long dark hair, bright smile, wearing a simple sundress. They were at a beach somewhere, both laughing at something off camera. They looked in love. My chest tightened with something ugly and unwelcome, jealousy. Who was she? An ex-girlfriend? An ex-wife? Why had Jason never mentioned her? I was about to set the photo down when I noticed something else, a letter, partially hidden under a leather portfolio. I knew I shouldn't. But I did anyway. I pulled out the letter, expensive stationery, feminine handwriting, and began to read. Jason. I know you'll never read this. I know you've blocked my number, returned my letters, made it clear you want nothing to do with me. But I need you to know the truth. I never meant to hurt you. What happened that night was a mistake, a terrible, unforgivable mistake that I'll regret for the rest of my life. But you have to understand that I loved you. I still love you. And watching you shut down, watching you disappear into yourself after the accident, watching you blame yourself for something that wasn't your fault, it destroyed me. You weren't driving, Jason. It wasn't your fault. No matter how many times you replay it in your mind, no matter how much you punish yourself, it wasn't your fault. I hope someday you'll let yourself be happy again. I hope you'll let someone in. I hope you'll forgive yourself for surviving when she didn't. I'm sorry I couldn't be stronger. I'm sorry I left when you needed me most. But I couldn't watch you destroy yourself anymore. Please, please forgive yourself. Oh my love. Catherine. My hands were shaking. She didn't. The accident. Forgive yourself for surviving when she didn't. The pieces clicked together with horrible clarity. The woman in the photograph. The 3-year hiatus from public life. The pain in Jason's eyes when he talked about his mother's death. The way he'd hired me to cook food that reminded him there were good things in the world. Someone had died. Someone Jason loved. And he blamed himself. What are you doing? I spun around. Jason stood in the doorway, still in his suit from dinner, his face a mask of cold fury that made my blood run cold. Jason, That's private. His voice was quiet. Dangerous. You had no right. I know, I'm sorry, You just what, Pepper? Decided to snoop through my personal belongings? To violate the one boundary I never explicitly stated because I assumed basic respect was implied. Shame flooded through me, hot and suffocating. You're right. I shouldn't have. But Jason. But nothing. He walked into the room, took the letter from my hands with surgical precision, and placed it back under the portfolio. His movements were controlled, mechanical. Like he was holding himself together through sheer force of will. Did you read it? I couldn't lie. Yes. Something broke in his expression, a wall slamming down, a door closing, a light going out. Get out. Jason, please. Get out. His voice cracked. Go back to the guest house. I can't look at you right now. Tears burned my eyes. Let me explain. There's nothing to explain. You violated my privacy. You read something intensely personal without my permission. He stopped, his jaw working. You made me trust you. You made me think you were different. And the first chance you got, you proved you're just like everyone else. That's not fair, I whispered. Fair. His laugh was bitter. You want to talk about fair? Nothing about this is fair, Pepper. I let you into my life. I let you into my heart. And he turned away, his shoulders rigid. Please leave. Now. I wanted to argue. Wanted to explain that I hadn't meant to betray him, that I was just trying to understand him, that my curiosity came from love, not manipulation. But the look on his face told me that no explanation would matter. I'd crossed a line. And there was no going back. I fled the office, tears streaming down my face, my heart shattering with every step. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the guest house, staring at my phone, composing and deleting a dozen apology texts. Nothing felt adequate. Nothing could fix what I'd broken. At 3 a.m., Maya called. "I can't sleep," she said without preamble. "Something's wrong. I can feel it." "What happened?" I told her everything, the photograph, the letter, Jason's fury, the way he'd looked at me like I was a stranger. "Oh, Pepper," she breathed. "What were you thinking?" "I don't know. I wanted to understand him. I wanted to know what hurt him so badly that he needed someone to cook food that reminded him life was worth living." "Did it occur to you to just ask him?" "I know." I sobbed. "I know I messed up. I know I violated his trust. But Maya, there was a woman. Someone he loved. And she died, and he blames himself, and now I've made everything worse. What are you going to do?" "I don't know. Apologize. Beg for forgiveness. Quit if he wants me to." The thought of leaving made my chest ache. I can't lose him. Not like this. "Then you fight for him. You give him space tonight, but tomorrow you march into that house and you tell him the truth. All of it. Why you looked, what you felt, how much he means to you. You make him see you, Pepper. The real you. The woman who made a mistake because she was falling in love with him. What if he doesn't forgive me? Then at least you tried. At least you were honest. But Pepper? If he really loves you, and I think he does, he'll understand that people make mistakes. Even big ones." After he hung up, I sat in the darkness, clutching my phone, praying that Maya was right. Praying that love was stronger than broken trust. At 6 a.m., I did what I always did when the world felt like it was ending. I cooked. I made Jason's breakfast with shaking hands and a broken heart, perfectly fluffy pancakes with fresh blueberries, crispy bacon, scrambled eggs with herbs. Food that said I'm sorry in the only language I knew how to speak fluently. At 6:30, I carried the tray to his back door. It was locked. I knocked. Once. Twice. 3 times. No answer. I set the tray down on the step, my vision blurring with tears, and pulled out my phone. "I know you don't want to see me. I know I violated your trust. But please eat. Please take care of yourself. I'm sorry, Jason. I'm so sorry. P." I waited 5 minutes. No response. I walked back to the guest house, crawled into bed fully dressed, and cried until I had nothing left. 3 days passed. 3 days of cooking meals that went uneaten. 3 days of texts that went unread. 3 days of silence so complete it felt like drowning. On the 4th day, Lincoln appeared at my door. My heart leaped. "Is Jason?" "He's fine. Physically." Lincoln's expression was carefully neutral. "He's asked me to deliver a message." "Okay," I whispered. "He needs time. He's not ready to speak with you yet. He asks that you continue your duties, preparing meals, leaving them at the door, but to please respect his need for space." "Does he?" I couldn't finish the sentence. Does he hate me? Does he want me to leave? Does he still feel anything for me at all? Lincoln's expression softened fractionally. "He's hurt, Ms. Torres. Deeply. But I've worked for Jason for 8 years, and I've never seen him care about anyone the way he cares about you. Give him time." After he left, I read and reread those words. Give him time. Time to heal. Time to think. Time to decide if what we had was worth salvaging. So I did the only thing I could do. I cooked. Every meal was a love letter. Every dish was an apology. Every plate was a promise that I would be better, do better, if he'd just give me another chance. And I waited. On the 7th day, I found a note with the empty breakfast tray. "Your hollandaise is perfect. A." It wasn't forgiveness. But it was something. The next day, the risotto was excellent. Almost as good as my Italian grandmother used to make. Almost. The day after that, "You're using too much salt in the morning eggs. I know you're stressed, but don't take it out on the seasoning." I laughed and cried at the same time. He was talking to me. In his own way, through food and notes, he was reaching out. On the 10th day, I made his favorite, my grandmother's chicken, the one I'd cooked the night of my audition. The one that tasted like love. I added a note to the tray. "I was wrong to invade your privacy. I was wrong to read something that wasn't meant for my eyes. But I wasn't wrong about you, Jason. You're not responsible for whatever tragedy you've been carrying. You're allowed to be happy. You're allowed to forgive yourself. You're allowed to love and be loved. And if you'll let me, I'd like to spend the rest of my time here proving that to you. Not as your chef. As someone who loves you. P. I set the tray at his door and walked away, my heart in my throat. An hour later, my phone buzzed. Dining room. 7 p.m. Come hungry and prepared to be honest. For real this time. A. At 7 p.m., I walked into Jason's dining room wearing the same black dress I'd worn for my interview. Jason sat at the head of the table, wearing jeans and a soft gray sweater. He looked tired, shadows under his eyes, a tightness around his mouth that spoke of sleepless nights. But when he saw me, something in his expression softened. Pepper. Jason. I stood in the doorway, unsure if I was allowed to come closer. Thank you for seeing me. Sit. I sat across from him, my hands folded in my lap like a child awaiting judgment. He was silent for a long moment, just looking at me. Then, her name was Isabel. My breath caught. She was my fiancée. We were engaged for 2 years, planning a wedding, building a life together. His voice was flat, controlled. 3 years ago, we were driving home from a charity gala. I'd had 2 glasses of wine, not drunk, but enough that Isabel insisted on driving. I fell asleep in the passenger seat. Oh God. When I woke up, we were upside down in a ditch. Isabel was, his voice cracked. She didn't make it. Internal injuries. She died in the ambulance. Tears streamed down my face. Jason. The investigation showed it wasn't her fault. A drunk driver crossed the median, hit us head-on. But I blamed myself anyway. Because if I'd been driving, if I'd stayed awake, if I'd insisted we leave earlier, if I'd done anything differently, maybe she'd still be alive. It wasn't your fault, I whispered. Logically, I know that. But grief isn't logical, Pepper. And neither is guilt. He finally looked at me, really looked at me. Catherine was Isabel's sister. She stayed with me after the funeral, tried to help me through the worst of it. But I was not okay. I shut down. Stopped working, stopped seeing people, stopped living. After a year, she couldn't take it anymore. She left. Wrote me that letter. And I've never forgiven myself for surviving when Isabel didn't. I couldn't help it. I stood, walked around the table, and knelt beside his chair. Jason, listen to me. What happened was a tragedy. But it wasn't your fault. You didn't choose to survive. You didn't choose for Isabel to die. Survival isn't a betrayal, it's a gift. A chance to honor her by living a life that means something. His hand found my hair, fingers tangling gently. I know. Intellectually, I know. But knowing and feeling are different things. Then let me help you feel it. Let me show you that you deserve happiness. That you deserve love. That you deserve to taste food and feel joy and build a life that isn't defined by guilt. Is that why you read the letter? He asked quietly. To understand me? Yes. I know that doesn't excuse it. I know I violated your privacy and broke your trust. But Jason, I'm falling in love with you, and I wanted to understand what was hurting you so badly. I wanted to know how to help. His thumb brushed away my tears. You terrify me, Pepper Torres. You walk into my life and suddenly everything I'd convinced myself was impossible seems possible. You make me want things I thought I'd given up the right to want. Like what? Like a future. Like happiness. Like you. He pulled me up, into his lap, cradling me against his chest. I'm not there yet. I'm not healed. I still have days where the guilt is so heavy I can barely breathe. But when I'm with you, when I taste your food, when you look at me like I'm worth something, it gets a little easier. I buried my face in his neck, breathing him in. I'm sorry I betrayed your trust. I know. And I forgive you. Not because what you did was okay, but because I understand why you did it. Because I would have done the same thing in your position. He pulled back to look at me. But Pepper, we need better communication. If you have questions about me, my past, anything, you ask. No more secrets. No more snooping. We trust each other or this doesn't work. Deal, I whispered. No more secrets. No more secrets, he echoed. Then he kissed me. It was different from before, deeper, more desperate, like we were both drowning and each other was air. When we finally broke apart, Jason rested his forehead against mine. I love you, he said simply. I didn't want to. I tried not to. But I do. My heart soared. I love you too. Even though I'm a mess. Especially because you're a mess. Messy is real. Messy is human. Messy is what I signed up for. He laughed, and the sound was the most beautiful thing I'd ever heard. So what now? I asked. Now. Jason smiled, that devastating, unfair smile that made my knees weak. Now you cook me dinner while I watch and fall more in love with you. Then we eat and talk and figure out this complicated, messy, beautiful thing we're building together. That sounds perfect. It really does. And for the first time since everything fell apart, I believed we'd be okay. Different, maybe. Changed by what we'd been through. But okay. For 2 weeks, we existed in a bubble. Jason and I were rebuilding trust brick by careful brick, sharing stories over dinner, falling asleep together on his couch watching old movies, stealing kisses in the kitchen between courses. He told me about Isabel, how they met at a tech conference, her laugh, her terrible singing voice, the way she'd loved him before the money mattered. I told him about my parents' death, the foster homes I'd cycled through before my grandmother took me in, the years of feeling like I didn't belong anywhere until I found cooking. We were two broken people learning to be whole together. It was beautiful. It was fragile. And on a Tuesday morning in late October, it shattered completely. I was in Jason's kitchen making lunch, a autumn harvest salad with roasted butternut squash, candied pecans, and a maple vinaigrette, when my phone rang. Maya. Her timing was usually impeccable, calling during my prep time when she knew Jason was in his office on conference calls. Hey girl, I answered, cradling the phone between my shoulder and ear while I whisked the dressing. What's up? Pepper. Her voice was strange. Tight. Wrong. Have you seen the news today? My hands stilled. What news? There's an article. About Jason. About you. She paused. It's bad, Pepper. It's really bad. My stomach dropped. What kind of article? Just look it up. Google Jason Thorne private chef. I'll stay on the line. With shaking hands, I pulled up my phone's browser and typed in the search. The first result made my blood run cold. Billionaire Jason Thorne's secret romance. Inappropriate relationship with household staff? I clicked it. The article was from a gossip blog, the kind that specialized in takedowns of the wealthy and powerful. But what made my chest tighten wasn't the publication. It was the photographs. Jason and me in the kitchen, him pulling me close. Jason and me on his back patio, sharing wine and laughing. Jason and me in the garden, his hand in my hair as he kissed my forehead. Private moments. Intimate moments. Stolen and sold for clicks. I kept reading, my vision blurring. Sources close to the situation reveal that Thorne, 34, hired Torres just 2 months ago as his private chef. Within weeks, the professional relationship allegedly crossed boundaries, with Torres moving into Thorne's estate and the two becoming inseparable. He basically owns her, one anonymous source claims. She cooks for him, lives in his house, depends on him for everything. It's textbook grooming. He's using his wealth and power to control her. This isn't the first time Thorne's personal life has raised eyebrows. 3 years ago, he withdrew from public life following the tragic death of his fiancée, Isabel Gonzalez, in a car accident that many close to the situation believe left him emotionally unstable. Jason never recovered from losing Isabel, says another source. He became obsessed with control, with creating a perfect life to replace what he lost. This girl, this chef, is just another piece he's trying to fit into that fantasy. Torres, 28, could not be reached for comment. Thorne's representatives declined to respond to our inquiry. The question remains, is this a genuine relationship between two consenting adults, or is it a wealthy man exploiting a young woman who depends on him for her livelihood? You decide. The phone slipped from my hand and clattered onto the counter. Pepper. Maya's voice was tinny and distant. Pepper, are you there? I picked up the phone with numb fingers. How did they get those photos? I don't know. But Pepper, it gets worse. The article's gone viral. It's trending on Twitter. There are think pieces being written about power dynamics and workplace ethics. They're not being kind. What are they saying? Maya was quiet for too long. Maya. They're calling you a gold digger. They're saying Jason is predatory. They're saying he's using you to replace his dead fiancé. Her voice cracked. There are comments about your race, Pepper. Ugly comments about why a black woman would be with a white billionaire. I'm so sorry. The room spun. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. I need to go, I whispered. I need to talk to Jason. Pepper, wait. I hung up. My hands shook as I walked toward Jason's office. Each step felt like wading through concrete. My mind raced with questions. Who took those photos? Who sold us out? How long had they been watching? Jason's door was closed, but I could hear his voice, low, controlled, dangerous. I knocked. Not now, he called out. Jason, it's me. I need. The door swung open. Jason stood there, his phone clutched in one hand, his expression carved from stone. You've seen it, he said flatly. Yes. Come in. Close the door. I did. His office felt different now, not a sanctuary but a war room. His laptop was open on the desk, displaying the article. His phone kept buzzing with notifications. Lincoln is handling it, Jason said, his voice devoid of emotion. Legal team is drafting cease and desist letters. PR is preparing a statement. We'll sue for invasion of privacy, harassment, defamation. Jason. He stopped pacing and looked at me. Really looked at me. And I saw it, the walls going back up. The man I'd fallen in love with disappearing behind the billionaire armor. This is my fault, he said quietly. I should have been more careful. I should have known people were watching. I should have protected you better. This isn't your fault. Of course it's my fault. His voice cracked. I'm the one with the money and the profile and the target on my back. I'm the one who should have known better than to think we could have something normal. Something private. Jason, we'll get through this. Will we? He laughed bitterly. Pepper, read the comments. Read what people are saying about you. About us. They're calling you a gold digger, a homewrecker, he stopped himself. They're destroying your reputation. Your career. Your life. Because of me. I don't care what strangers on the internet think. You should. He ran his hands through his hair, a gesture of pure frustration. Because these strangers? They control narratives. They influence hiring decisions. They can make sure you never work in a professional kitchen again. They can make your name synonymous with scandal. The truth of his words hit me like a physical blow. So what are you saying? I asked, my voice small. Jason turned away, his shoulders rigid. I'm saying that maybe everyone's right. Maybe this was a mistake from the beginning. Maybe I was so desperate to feel something again that I convinced myself we could make this work despite the power imbalance, despite the complications, despite everything. You don't mean that. Don't I? He spun back around, and the pain in his eyes nearly broke me. Pepper, I love you. God help me, I love you more than I thought I could ever love anyone again. But loving you means protecting you. And right now, being with me is destroying you. No. Yes. His voice was firm. Final. Your name is being dragged through the mud because you had the misfortune of falling for a billionaire with baggage. Your career is being questioned. Your character is being assassinated. All because I was selfish enough to think I could have you. Tears streamed down my face. Jason, please. I think you should leave. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. What? Not permanently. Not yet. Just take some time. Go stay with Maya. Let the media circus die down. Let me handle the legal side. He couldn't look at me. Let us both think about whether this is really what we want. I know what I want, I said desperately. I want you. I want us. I don't care about the articles or the comments or any of it. But I do. His voice rose, raw with emotion. I care that people are tearing you apart. I care that my past is being weaponized against you. I care that every moment we're together, someone might be watching, documenting, waiting to sell our private life for profit. So we're just going to let them win? Let them scare us apart. I'm trying to protect you, Pepper. Why can't you see that? Because I don't need protection. I shouted. I need you to fight for us, not against us. I need you to believe that what we have is worth more than what they say about it. Jason's expression crumbled. I want to believe that. I do. But Pepper, everyone I've ever loved has been hurt because of me. My mother spent her last years fighting cancer while dealing with media scrutiny about our family. Isabel died in a car meant for me. Catherine broke under the weight of my grief. And now you. I'm not them, I interrupted. I'm not fragile. I'm not going to break because some assholes on the internet have opinions. I'm a black woman who survived foster care and culinary school and years of being underestimated. I don't scare easy. Maybe you should. His voice dropped to a whisper. Maybe you should be scared of what loving me costs. The silence that followed felt like the end of everything. Is that really what you want? I asked, my voice breaking. For me to leave. Jason closed his eyes. I want you to be safe. I want you to have a career and a reputation and a life that isn't defined by being Jason Thorne's chef-turned-girlfriend. He opened his eyes, and they were swimming with unshed tears. I want you to have the choice I never gave you. The choice to walk away before this destroys you. What if I don't want that choice? Then I'm making it for you. He walked to his desk, pulled out a checkbook, and started writing. I'm releasing you from your employment contract. You'll receive 6 months severance, enough to get an apartment, start over, do whatever you need to do. Lincoln will pack your things and help you move wherever you want to go. He tore out the check and held it out. I stared at it like it was a snake. You're paying me to leave? I'm making sure you're taken care of. That's not the same thing. Pepper, please. His voice cracked. Please just take it. Let me do this one thing right. Let me protect you from the mess I created. You didn't create this mess. Some photographer with a telephoto lens did. Some blogger desperate for clicks did. They did this, Jason. Not you. But I put you in the position to be targeted in the first place. He pushed the check toward me. Take it. Please. I looked at the check, at the number that would solve all my financial problems, at the way out he was offering me, and I felt something inside me break. You know what the saddest part is? I said quietly. It's not the article or the photos or the comments. It's that you're letting them win. You're doing exactly what they want, pushing away the person who loves you because you're convinced you don't deserve to be happy. Pepper. No. You don't get to do this. You don't get to love me and then throw me away because things got hard. That's not how love works. I'm not throwing you away. Yes, you are. You're using this article as an excuse to do what you've been terrified of all along, actually letting someone in. Actually taking the risk that maybe, just maybe, this time it'll work out. Jason's face was a mask of pain. You don't understand. I understand perfectly. You're scared. And when you're scared, you push people away before they can hurt you. Before they can die or leave or prove that you were right to never let them close in the first place. I wiped my tears with the back of my hand. But here's the thing, Jason. I'm not going anywhere unless you explicitly tell me to. So say it. Look me in the eye and tell me you want me to leave. He stared at me for a long, agonizing moment. Then, I want you to leave. The words hit like bullets. Say it again, I whispered. Say it like you mean it. I want you to leave, Pepper. For your own good. For your own future. I want you to walk away from me and never look back. I took the check from his hand. Our fingers brushed, and I felt him flinch. You're a coward, I said softly. And the tragedy is that Isabel would be so disappointed in you right now. His face went white. It was a cruel thing to say. The cruelest thing I could have said. But it was also true. I turned and walked out of his office, my vision blurred with tears, my heart shattered into pieces I wasn't sure I could ever put back together. Lincoln met me in the hallway, his expression professionally sympathetic. Ms. Torres, I've arranged for a car to take you wherever you'd like to go. Your belongings will be packed and delivered within the hour. The guest house, I said numbly. I'll pack my own things. As you wish. I walked back to the guest house in a daze. The place that had felt like home for 2 months now felt like a museum. Someone else's life, someone else's happiness, frozen in time. I packed mechanically, clothes, toiletries, my grandmother's recipe box, my knife roll. The essentials of a life that had just imploded. My phone buzzed constantly, Maya calling, texting, probably losing her mind with worry. I couldn't talk to her yet. Couldn't explain what had just happened. Instead, I pulled out my phone and did something I'd been avoiding. I read the comments on the article. Gold digger 100%. He's clearly having a mental breakdown and she's taking advantage. Another black woman trying to trap a rich white man, tale as old as time. I feel bad for him. He lost his fiancée and now this predator is manipulating him. She's probably a terrible chef who slept her way into the job. But there were other comments too. Why are we vilifying a woman for falling in love? Y'all are weird. They look happy in those photos. Let people live. The real predators are the photographers stalking them. I hope they make it. Love is love. I closed the comments and looked around the guest house one last time. Then I did something that would have made my grandmother proud. I got angry. Not sad. Not defeated. Angry. Because Jason Thorne didn't get to decide my future. The internet didn't get to decide my worth. And I sure as hell wasn't going to let some tabloid article destroy what we'd built. I called Maya. She answered on the first ring. Pepper, oh my God, are you okay? Where are you? What happened? He broke up with me, I said flatly. Told me to leave for my own good. Paid me off with a check for 6 months severance. That absolute. But here's the thing, Maya. I'm not leaving. Not really. Not until I make sure he understands what he's throwing away. What are you going to do? I looked at my knife roll, at my grandmother's recipe box, at the life I'd built from nothing. I'm going to cook, I said. I'm going to cook the most important meal of my life. And I'm going to make Jason Thorne remember why he fell in love with me in the first place. Pepper, that's insane. Probably. But I didn't survive everything I've survived just to give up when things got hard. Jason wants to protect me? Fine. But he's going to have to look me in the eye and tell me he doesn't love me anymore. And I'm going to make damn sure he can't lie convincingly. Maya laughed despite everything. You're either brilliant or completely crazy. Maybe both. When? Tonight. Dinner. 7 p.m. I started pulling ingredients from my bag. I need you to do something for me. Anything. Call Lincoln Hayes. Tell him that Pepper Torres has one final meal to prepare before she leaves. And Jason Thorne better be hungry. The next morning, I woke up in Jason's bed for the first time. Not because we'd rushed into anything physical. We'd spent the night talking, planning, falling asleep in each other's arms fully clothed like teenagers who'd stayed up too late sharing secrets. But waking up next to him, watching the early morning light paint gold across his sleeping face, feeling his arm heavy and warm around my waist, it felt like a promise kept. Like we'd survived the storm and found our way back to each other. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Maya, obviously. Please tell me you're alive, and it worked. I smiled and typed back, alive. It worked. He's an idiot, but he's my idiot. Praise. I need details. All of them. Come over for brunch? Can't. We have a situation to handle. The article? The article. Because as much as I wanted to stay in this bubble, this perfect morning where nothing existed except Jason and me and the choice we'd made, reality was waiting. The article was still out there. The photographs were still circulating. And we needed to take control of the narrative before it destroyed us both. Jason stirred beside me, his eyes opening slowly. When he saw me, his entire face softened. "Hi," he murmured, his voice rough with sleep. "Hi yourself. Last night happened, right? I didn't dream that you cooked an entire 4-course meal designed to emotionally devastate me into admitting I was wrong. It happened. And you were wrong. I was spectacularly wrong." He pulled me closer. "Remind me to never bet against your cooking again. You weaponize food better than anyone I've ever met. It's a gift." I kissed his shoulder. "But Jason, we need to talk about what comes next." His body tensed slightly. The article. The photos. The narrative. All of it. I propped myself up on one elbow to look at him properly. "Lincoln said your legal team was drafting responses. What's the plan?" Jason sat up, running a hand through his sleep-mussed hair. "Cease and desist letters to the blog and the photographer for invasion of privacy. Possible lawsuit for defamation, depending on what our lawyers think we can prove. Standard Billionaire response to unwanted media attention." "That's defensive," I said carefully. "What about offensive?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, right now they've created a narrative about us. Poor Billionaire being manipulated by gold-digging chef. But what if we create our own narrative? What if we control the story instead of reacting to theirs?" Interest sparked in Jason's eyes. "What are you proposing?" "An interview. A real one. Not some puff piece where we pretend everything is perfect, but an honest conversation about how we met, why we're together, what our relationship actually looks like. Take away their power by being transparent." "Pepper, he stopped himself. "Actually, that's brilliant. If we own the story, they can't twist it." "Exactly. But it has to be on our terms. We choose the publication, the interviewer, the timing. We go in prepared and united." Jason was quiet for a moment, his business mind clearly working through the logistics. "It's risky. Once we put ourselves out there, we can't take it back. Every word will be analyzed. Every photograph scrutinized." "I know. But hiding didn't work. Running didn't work. Maybe radical honesty will." He looked at me like I was the most fascinating puzzle he'd ever encountered. "How are you not terrified right now?" "Oh, I'm terrified. I'm absolutely terrified." I took his hand. "But I'm more terrified of letting them win. Of letting fear make our decisions. Of living our lives in hiding because we're worried about what strangers think." "You're remarkable, you know that?" "I've been told." I kissed him quickly. "So? Are we doing this?" Jason pulled out his phone and started typing. "I'm texting Lincoln. If we're going to do this, we're going to do it right. Full PR strategy. Media training. The works." "Media training?" "Trust me, you want media training. Journalists are sharks. They'll ask seemingly innocent questions designed to make you say something incriminating or controversial. We need to be prepared." I'd never been media trained in my life. The thought was both exciting and terrifying. "Okay. But I have one condition." "What's that?" "We include my story. Not just yours. Not just the relationship. But who I am, where I came from, what I've built. I'm not going to be reduced to Billionaire's girlfriend or private chef. I'm Pepper Torres, culinary school graduate, granddaughter of Doris Torres, future restaurant owner. That's part of the narrative too." Jason's smile was pure pride. "Deal. We tell the whole story. Both of us. Equal partners." "Equal partners," I agreed. Lincoln arrived 2 hours later with a full PR team in tow. There was Vanessa Hawk, a crisis communications specialist with a reputation for turning scandals into success stories. Marcus Rodriguez, a media trainer who'd prepped everyone from politicians to pop stars. And James Cooper, Jason's primary attorney, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. We gathered in Jason's living room, me in jeans and one of Jason's sweatshirts that I'd stolen, him in casual clothes that still somehow looked expensive, and the team in various states of professional attire. "Let's start with damage control," Vanessa said, opening her tablet. The article has been shared 47,000 times across social media platforms. It's trending on Twitter under 3 different hashtags. TMZ picked it up. So did Page 6. You're officially a story. Fantastic, I muttered. But, Vanessa continued, that means you have attention. And attention can be redirected. Here's what I'm proposing: an exclusive interview with a major publication. Someone reputable who will treat you fairly but ask real questions. My suggestion is Vanity Fair. They have the gravitas, the reach, and the reputation for in-depth profiles. Vanity Fair? I squeaked. That's huge. You're dating a billionaire who withdrew from public life for 3 years and just resurfaced in a controversial relationship. You're huge whether you like it or not. Vanessa wasn't unkind, just matter of fact. The question is whether you want to be huge on your terms or theirs. Jason squeezed my hand. It's your choice, Pepper. We don't have to do this. I thought about my grandmother. About how she taught me that hiding who you were only gave other people power over you. About how she'd never apologized for taking up space or being exactly who she was. Let's do it, I said. Let's tell our story. The next week was a whirlwind. Media training with Marcus, who taught me how to bridge awkward questions back to my talking points, how to maintain composure under pressure, how to smile through invasive inquiries about my personal life. They're going to ask about money, Marcus said during one session. How much Jason pays you. Whether you have a prenup. Whether you're together for financial security. And I say. You say that your relationship with Jason is personal, not financial. That you were successful before you met him and will be successful regardless of your relationship status. That reducing love to economics is insulting to both of you. We practiced for hours. Role-playing scenarios, crafting responses, learning how to control the narrative without sounding defensive or rehearsed. Meanwhile, Jason's legal team worked on the cease and desist letters. The blog took down the article within 48 hours, issuing a lukewarm apology about respecting privacy. The photographer was harder. He claimed the photos were taken from public property and therefore legal. We're pursuing it, James assured us. But it'll take time. Time we didn't really have. The interview was scheduled for the following Monday. In between all the preparation, Jason and I found moments of normalcy. I still cooked 3 meals a day, though now Jason often joined me in the kitchen, chopping vegetables or stirring sauces while we talked about everything and nothing. I've been thinking, he said one evening while I prepared roasted salmon with lemon dill sauce. About what you said. About opening your own restaurant. Yeah. I want to help. Not financially, not unless you ask. But connections, location scouting, investors who aren't me. I know people. I can make introductions. I set down my knife and turned to face him. Jason, that's incredibly generous. But I need to do this on my own. I need to know that whatever I build, I built it. Not because of your money or your connections, but because I'm genuinely talented. He nodded slowly. I understand. And I respect that. But Pepper, using available resources isn't cheating. It's being smart. Every successful person I know got where they are partly because someone gave them an opportunity or made an introduction or believed in them publicly. But I'm not saying let me buy you a restaurant. I'm saying let me help you network. Let me introduce you to people who might invest in your vision. What you do with those introductions is entirely up to you. If they invest, it's because you convinced them you're worth the risk. Not because I told them to. I considered this. Pride warred with pragmatism. Okay, I said finally. Introductions. But that's it. No money. No special treatment. No invest in my girlfriend's restaurant or else. Deal. He kissed my forehead. Your grandmother would be proud of you, you know. The way you refuse to compromise your values or let anyone diminish your accomplishments. She'd probably also tell me I'm being too stubborn for my own good. Probably. But that's part of your charm. The morning of the interview, I was a wreck. I changed outfits 4 times before settling on a burgundy wrap dress that Maya had helped me pick out. Professional but not stuffy, elegant but approachable. I'd had my hair professionally done at Jason's insistence. My natural curls shaped and styled into something that looked effortless but had taken an hour to achieve. You look beautiful, Jason said, appearing in the doorway of the guest house where I'd been getting ready. He wore dark jeans and a navy button-down that made his eyes look impossibly blue. And terrified. I am terrified. What if I say something stupid? What if I accidentally make everything worse? Then we'll handle it. Together. He crossed the room and took my hands. Pepper, you've already survived the hardest part. You fought for us when I was too scared to fight for myself. You cooked a 4-course meal designed to emotionally manipulate me into making better choices. You can absolutely handle one interview. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. Just tell the truth. That's all you have to do. Tell them who you are, why you love me despite my many flaws, and what you want for your future. The rest will take care of itself. I took a deep breath. Okay. Truth. I can do truth. I know you can. The interview took place in Jason's living room, neutral territory that felt like ours but was impressive enough to photograph well. The journalist was Rebecca Winters, a Vanity Fair veteran known for her incisive but fair profiles. She arrived with a photographer and a recording device, all business but with kind eyes that made me think she might actually be on our side. Thank you both for agreeing to this, Rebecca said once we were settled, Jason and me on the couch, her in an armchair across from us. I know the past week has been difficult. I appreciate your willingness to share your story. Thank you for giving us the opportunity, Jason said smoothly, his public persona clicking into place. Rebecca smiled. Let's start at the beginning. Jason, you've been out of the public eye for 3 years following the death of your fiancée, Isabel Gonzalez. What made you decide to hire a private chef? Jason's hand found mine on the couch, an anchor, a reminder that we were doing this together. I was existing, not living, he said simply. I'd spent 3 years going through the motions, running my businesses, attending necessary meetings, but never really engaging with life. Food had become fuel, nothing more. And then a friend convinced me to visit this small restaurant called Ember and Sage, and I tasted something that reminded me what I'd been missing. Pepper's cooking? Pepper's soul, Jason corrected. Her food wasn't just technically perfect, though it was. It told stories. It made you feel things. It reminded me that there was still beauty in the world if you were willing to taste it. Rebecca turned to me. Pepper, you were working as a line cook at Ember and Sage. Not exactly a stepping stone to private chef for a billionaire. How did that transition happen? This was my moment. Truth. Jason's assistant showed up at the back door of the restaurant at 3 a.m. and offered me $15,000 a week to cook for an exclusive client, I said. I thought it was a scam or a setup for a true crime documentary. But I was exhausted, undervalued, and drowning in student debt. So I said yes. Just like that. I had 60 seconds to decide. Jason doesn't like to wait. Rebecca laughed. I'm sensing a theme. Jason, was the time limit really necessary? Absolutely. I wanted to see how Pepper made decisions under pressure. Whether she'd choose safety or possibility. Whether she'd let fear control her or take a calculated risk. He looked at me with obvious affection. She took the risk. And she hasn't stopped taking them since. Including falling in love with your employer? The question was gentle but pointed. I took a breath. Including that. Look, I'm not naive. I understand how the power dynamic looks from the outside. Wealthy employer, young employee, live-in position. It checks all the boxes for a problematic relationship. But what people don't see is the reality of how we actually interact. Which is? Jason never used his position to pressure me. Never made me feel like my job depended on anything except my cooking. When we started developing feelings for each other, he brought in Lincoln, his assistant, to make sure I understood I could leave any time, that my employment was secure regardless of whether we pursued a romantic relationship. I met Rebecca's eyes. He gave me power in a situation where I theoretically had none. That's not exploitation. That's respect. But surely there are still complications? Of course there are, Jason interjected. There are complications in every relationship. The difference is that ours are visible, documented, sold to tabloids by photographers with telephoto lenses. But the complications themselves, navigating boundaries, communicating needs, building trust, those are universal. Rebecca made notes. Let's talk about the article that sparked this interview. How did you both react when you saw those photos, read those claims about your relationship? This was the hard part. I was devastated, I admitted. Not because the claims were true, but because I realized that our private life wasn't private anymore. That every moment of joy or intimacy could be weaponized against us. That people I'd never met felt entitled to have opinions about my character, my motivations, my worth. And you, Jason? I panicked, he said bluntly. I tried to protect Pepper by pushing her away. By convincing myself, and her, that being with me was destroying her life. I gave her a severance check and told her to leave. Rebecca's eyebrows rose. That must have been difficult. It was the worst decision I've ever made, Jason said. And Pepper made sure I knew it. How so? I smiled at the memory. I cooked him a 4-course meal that essentially forced him to confront every terrible choice he was making. Each dish represented a different part of our relationship, how we started, how we grew, the pain we'd survived, the hope we could still have. By the time dessert arrived, he'd realized that pushing me away wasn't protecting me. It was just another form of control. That's incredibly insightful for someone so young. The comment could have been condescending, but Rebecca's tone was genuinely admiring. I'm 28, not 18, I said gently. I've survived foster care, culinary school, and 3 years of professional kitchens where grown men have literal tantrums. I'm not some naive girl who needs protecting from her own choices. I'm a woman who knows what she wants and isn't afraid to fight for it. And what do you want? I want to open my own restaurant. I want to create food that honors my grandmother's legacy while pushing boundaries and challenging expectations. I want to prove that a black woman from a state school with no family connections can make it in this industry on pure talent and determination. I paused. And I want to build a life with Jason that's honest and complicated and absolutely worth fighting for. Rebecca turned to Jason. And you? What do you want? I want Pepper to achieve everything she just described. I want to support her dreams without overshadowing them. I want to wake up every morning and remember that I'm allowed to be happy, that survival isn't something to feel guilty about, that love doesn't always end in tragedy. His voice softened. And I want people to see that what we have is real. Imperfect, complicated, sometimes messy, but real. The interview continued for another hour. Questions about our daily life, our future plans, how we navigated the wealth disparity, whether we planned to marry, how we dealt with racism and public scrutiny. We answered everything honestly, acknowledging the complications while refusing to apologize for loving each other. By the end, I was exhausted but exhilarated. Last question, Rebecca said. What would you say to people who still believe this relationship is inappropriate or exploitative? I looked at Jason, then back at Rebecca. I'd say that reducing complex human relationships to simple narratives is lazy. That assuming a woman can't love a wealthy man for anything but his money is sexist. That questioning an interracial relationship in 2024 is racist. And that if you're more concerned about the theoretical power dynamics of our relationship than about your own biases and assumptions, maybe you should examine why that is. Jason squeezed my hand. I'd say that Pepper Torres is the strongest, most principled person I've ever met. That she challenges me, inspires me, and makes me want to be better every single day. And that anyone who thinks she's anything other than extraordinary is wrong. Rebecca smiled and clicked off her recorder. That's perfect. Thank you both. This is going to be an incredible piece. After she left, Jason pulled me into his arms. We did it, I whispered. You did it. You were perfect. We did it together. Like everything else. And in that moment, I knew we were going to be okay. Not because the article would fix everything. Public opinion was fickle and people would believe what they wanted to believe. But because we'd stood together, told our truth, and refused to let anyone else define what we meant to each other. That was worth more than any headline. 3 months later, I stood in front of an empty storefront in downtown, keys in hand, my heart hammering with a mixture of terror and pure joy. The Vanity Fair article had changed everything. It ran with the headline, Love, Food, and Second Chances, Inside Jason Thorne and Pepper Torres's Unconventional Romance. The photographs were beautiful, intimate but not invasive. Us cooking together in Jason's kitchen, laughing over a burnt sauce. Me presenting a dish with obvious pride. Jason watching me with an expression that made it impossible to doubt how he felt. But it was Rebecca's writing that truly captured us. She'd woven together our individual stories, Jason's loss and withdrawal, my struggle for recognition and respect, into a narrative about two people finding each other at exactly the right moment. She'd addressed the complications without sensationalizing them. She'd let us be complex and flawed and real. The response was overwhelming. Some people still believed I was a gold digger. Some still thought Jason was exploitative. The racist comments hadn't disappeared entirely, and probably never would. But the majority? The majority saw what Rebecca had seen, two people genuinely in love, navigating an unusual situation with honesty and respect. Within a week, I had 3 investors interested in my restaurant concept. Within 2 weeks, I'd been offered a spot on a Food Network competition show, which I turned down. I had no interest in being famous for cooking under artificial pressure. Within a month, culinary magazines were reaching out for interviews about my unique perspective and innovative approach to comfort food. It was surreal, overwhelming, everything I'd ever wanted and absolutely terrifying. And through it all, Jason was there, not managing my career or making decisions for me, but supporting from the sidelines. Making introductions when asked. Offering advice when requested. Celebrating every victory and holding me through every moment of doubt. Which brought me to this moment, standing in front of the empty storefront that would become my restaurant. Jason stood beside me, his hand warm in mine, letting me have this moment without interrupting. "This is real," I whispered. "This is real," he confirmed. The space was perfect, 2,000 square feet in a neighborhood that was gentrifying but not yet overpriced, with high ceilings, exposed brick, and huge windows that would flood the dining room with natural light. It needed work, a complete kitchen renovation, new flooring, updated electrical, but I could see it. Could see the tables where families would gather, the open kitchen where diners could watch me cook, the walls where I'd hang photographs of my grandmother and her recipes written in her handwriting. I could see my dream taking physical form. "What are you going to call it?" Jason asked softly. I'd been thinking about this for weeks. The name needed to honor my grandmother while being forward-looking. Needed to be memorable without being gimmicky. "Doris's Table," I said. After my grandmother. But also because a table is where people gather, where stories are shared, where food becomes more than sustenance. It becomes a connection. Jason's smile was brilliant. "It's perfect. She would have loved it." "I hope so." I squeezed his hand. "Thank you. For believing in me. For not trying to buy this for me or control it or make it easier than it should be. You don't need me to make it easier. You're perfectly capable of building something extraordinary on your own." He pulled me closer. "I'm just lucky I get to watch." The grand opening of Doris's Table was scheduled for February 14th, Valentine's Day. Maya thought it was corny. "You're opening a restaurant on the most cliché day of the year?" "I'm reclaiming it," I'd argued. Valentine's Day shouldn't just be about romantic love. It should be about all kinds of love, family, friendship, community. Doris's Table is about feeding people and making them feel loved. What better day to open? She'd rolled her eyes but admitted I had a point. The months leading up to the opening were chaos. I hired a small staff, 3 line cooks, 2 servers, and a sous chef named James who'd worked in Michelin-starred restaurants and was ready for something more personal and meaningful. We spent weeks perfecting the menu, elevated comfort food that honored my grandmother's recipes while incorporating modern techniques and seasonal ingredients. Braised short ribs with sweet potato puree. Pan-seared salmon with lemon dill sauce and roasted vegetables. My grandmother's gumbo, made with the exact recipe she'd taught me. Fried chicken that would make you cry. Peach cobbler that tasted like summer and childhood and every good memory you'd ever had. Food that told stories. Food that made people feel something. Jason came by almost every day during the renovation, not to supervise or control, but just to be present. Sometimes he'd sit at the bar while I tested recipes, offering honest feedback. Sometimes he'd help paint walls or move furniture. Sometimes he'd just watch me work with an expression that made my heart skip. "You're in your element," he said one evening as I plated a test dish for the staff to try. "You're radiant." "I'm sweaty and covered in flour," I corrected, but I smiled. "Radiant," he repeated firmly. "The way you move in a kitchen, It's like watching someone speak their native language after years of being forced to communicate in broken phrases. This is who you're meant to be. I set down the plate and crossed to him, wrapping my arms around his neck. I couldn't have done this without you. Yes, you could have. It might have taken longer, but you would have done it. You're unstoppable when you set your mind to something. We're unstoppable, I corrected. Together. He kissed me softly. Together. The night before the opening, I couldn't sleep. I lay in Jason's bed, my official residence now. The guest house had been converted into an office/testing kitchen, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing through 1,000 potential disasters. What if no one came? What if the food was terrible? What if critics hated it? What if I'd made a huge mistake and wasted everyone's time and money? Pepper. Jason's voice was sleep-rough. I can hear you thinking from here. Sorry. Didn't mean to wake you. He pulled me against his chest, his arms wrapping around me like a shield against my anxiety. Talk to me. What's going on in that brilliant, terrifying mind of yours? I'm scared, I admitted. What if I'm not ready? What if I fail? Then you fail. And you learn from it. And you try again. He pressed a kiss to my temple. But Pepper, you're not going to fail. I've tasted your food. I've watched you lead your team. I've seen the passion you pour into every detail. This restaurant is going to be extraordinary because you're extraordinary. You have to say that. You're contractually obligated as my boyfriend. I'm saying it because it's true. And tomorrow night, when Doris's table opens and people taste what you've created, they're going to understand what I've known since that first night, that you're one of the most talented chefs of your generation. That your grandmother's legacy lives on through you. That food can be art and comfort and love all at once. Tears pricked my eyes. I miss her. I wish she could be here to see this. She is here. In every recipe. In every choice you make. In the way you refuse to compromise your values or let anyone diminish what you're building. He tilted my chin up so I had to meet his eyes. She's so proud of you, Pepper. And so am I. I love you, I whispered. I love you too. Now sleep. Tomorrow is going to be perfect, but only if you're not too exhausted to enjoy it. I closed my eyes and let myself sink into his warmth, his certainty, his unwavering belief in me. And somehow, I slept. Valentine's Day arrived with clear skies and unseasonably warm weather, a gift from the universe. Doris's table opened its doors at 6 p.m. to a line of people waiting to get in. I watched from the kitchen, my heart in my throat, as the dining room filled. I recognized faces, food critics from major publications, local influencers with their cameras ready, but also regular people who'd heard about the restaurant through word of mouth or read the Vanity Fair article and wanted to experience it for themselves. Jason sat at a corner table with Maya and Lincoln, deliberately understated so as not to draw attention away from the restaurant. But I could feel his presence, his support, his pride. Orders coming in, James called, and I snapped into focus. This was it. Everything I'd worked for. Everything my grandmother had dreamed of for me. The first ticket was for braised short ribs. I smiled and got to work. The night was a blur of heat and noise and adrenaline. Orders flew in faster than I could track. My staff moved with the precision of a well-oiled machine. Plates went out beautiful and hot and exactly as I'd envisioned them. And then something magical happened. People started sending compliments back to the kitchen. Tell the chef this is the best meal I've had in years. This gumbo tastes like my grandmother's. How did she know? I literally cried eating the peach cobbler. Cried. Each compliment was fuel. Each satisfied diner was validation. Around 9 p.m., during a brief lull, James came to find me. Boss, you need to see this. He led me to the kitchen door and pointed to the dining room. Every table was full. People were laughing, talking, taking photographs of their food not for Instagram but because they wanted to remember this moment. I watched an elderly couple hold hands across their table, sharing bites of dessert. A family with young children, the kids actually eating vegetables without complaint. A first date that looked like it was going well, both people leaning in, engaged, happy. This was what I'd wanted. Not fame. Not recognition. This. People connected over food. People creating memories. People feeling loved. Your grandmother would be so proud, James said quietly. I wiped my eyes quickly. Yeah, she would. At midnight, after the last diner had left and the kitchen was cleaned, my staff gathered in the dining room for a celebratory toast. Jason, Maya, and Lincoln joined us, along with a few other friends who'd helped make the night possible. I stood at the head of one of the tables, glass of champagne in hand, looking at the faces of people who'd believed in me. I don't really know how to do speeches, I started, and everyone laughed. But I want to say thank you to my staff, who worked their asses off tonight and made my vision a reality. To Jason, who supported me without trying to control me, which I know was probably very hard for a control freak. More laughter. Jason raised his glass in acknowledgement. To Maya, who has been my best friend since culinary school and who never let me give up even when things seemed impossible. To Lincoln, who has dealt with more chaos in the past 6 months than any assistant should have to handle. Lincoln smiled. It's been my pleasure, Ms. Torres. And to my grandmother, Doris Torres, who taught me that cooking isn't just about feeding people, it's about loving them. This restaurant exists because of her. Because she showed me that the greatest gift you can give someone is a meal made with your whole heart. I raised my glass higher. To Doris's table. To second chances. To building dreams from scratch. To all of us. To all of us. Everyone chorused, clinking glasses. Jason caught my eye across the room and mouthed, I love you. I mouthed it back, I love you too. Later, after everyone had left and it was just Jason and me in the empty restaurant, I walked through the dining room, trailing my fingers across the tables. How does it feel? Jason asked from where he leaned against the bar. Surreal. Perfect. Terrifying. I turned to look at him. Like everything I've ever wanted and everything I'm afraid of losing all at once. That's life, isn't it? Beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. When did you get so philosophical? I've always been philosophical. You just never noticed because you were too busy being annoyed by my controlling tendencies. I laughed and walked over to him, slipping into his arms. I was never annoyed. Okay, I was frequently annoyed. But also charmed. And challenged. And eventually completely in love with you despite my better judgment. Despite your better judgment? Well, you're still kind of a control freak. And you do crossword puzzles in pen, which is psychotic behavior. And you're worth approximately $2 billion more than me, which is a slight financial imbalance. Slight, he agreed, grinning. But you're also the person who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. Who gave me space to build my own dream instead of trying to build it for me. Who loves me for exactly who I am, flour-covered and stubborn and determined to do everything the hard way. That's my favorite version of you. Though I also like the version who cooks 4-course emotional manipulation meals. I'll keep that in my back pocket for future arguments. Jason cupped my face in his hands, his expression turning serious. Pepper Torres, you have given me something I thought I'd lost forever. A reason to believe in tomorrow. A reason to wake up excited about the day ahead. A reason to forgive myself for surviving when others didn't. My throat tightened. Jason. Let me finish. Isabel's death nearly destroyed me. I spent 3 years convinced that I didn't deserve happiness, that loving someone again would be a betrayal. And then you walked into my life with your pineapple scarf and your rolling pin and your grandmother's recipes. And you showed me that surviving isn't something to feel guilty about. It's something to honor. To celebrate. To live. Tears streamed down my face. I'm not going to propose tonight, Jason continued, because that would be cliché and you've made it very clear how you feel about clichés on Valentine's Day. But I want you to know that when I do propose, and I will propose, it won't be because I think you need me or because I want to possess you or because of any of the stupid reasons people get married. It'll be because I want to spend the rest of my life watching you build extraordinary things and being grateful that you let me be part of your story. That's the worst non-proposal I've ever heard, I said, laughing through my tears. It's perfect. You're perfect. I'm really not. I'm stubborn and impulsive and I have a tendency to cook when I'm upset instead of actually dealing with my emotions. All true. And all the reasons I love you. I pulled him down for a kiss. Soft and sweet and full of promise. When we broke apart, Jason rested his forehead against mine. So what's next for Pepper Torres? restaurant owner and emotional manipulator extraordinaire. I thought about it. About the reviews that would come out in the next few weeks, some good, some critical, all part of the process. About the challenges of running a business, managing staff, maintaining quality. About the dreams I still had, maybe expanding to a second location someday, writing a cookbook that honored my grandmother, eventually teaching the next generation of chefs who felt like they didn't fit the traditional mold. Next. I said. Next I keep cooking. Keep learning. Keep proving that a black woman from a state school with no family connections can build something that matters. Keep loving you even when you're being impossible. Keep honoring my grandmother's legacy by feeding people and making them feel like they belong. That sounds like a pretty good life. It sounds like the best life. Because it's mine. Built by my hands, on my terms, with the people I love beside me. Jason kissed me again, and I tasted promise in it. Commitment. A future written in shared meals and stolen moments, and the kind of love that survives scrutiny and scandal and self-doubt. We left Doris's table hand in hand, locking the door behind us, the moon bright overhead and the world full of possibility. 6 months later. Doris's table had a 3-month waiting list. I'd been featured in Bon Appetit, Food and Wine, and had just been nominated for a James Beard Award in the Best New Restaurant category. The restaurant had become a destination. People flew in from other cities just to experience what food critics were calling comfort food elevated to art form. But more importantly, it had become what I'd always envisioned, a place where people gathered, where food created connections, where everyone felt welcome regardless of their background or bank account balance. I'd hired 3 more staff members, all from non-traditional culinary backgrounds, all hungry to prove themselves. I'd started a scholarship program in my grandmother's name for culinary students who couldn't afford tuition. I'd begun planning a cookbook. And Jason? Jason had slowly started re-engaging with the world. He accepted speaking invitations at tech conferences, invested in startups founded by underrepresented entrepreneurs, and even smiled in photographs at charity galas where I accompanied him in dresses that no longer felt like costumes. We'd found our rhythm. Our balance. Our life. It wasn't perfect. We still argued about his tendency to make decisions unilaterally, about my stubborn refusal to ask for help, about who left dishes in the sink and whose turn it was to walk the dog we'd impulsively adopted, a rescue mutt named Basil who was food-motivated and absolutely spoiled. But it was ours. Real. Complicated. Worth fighting for. On a Tuesday evening in August, Jason showed up at Doris's table during dinner service, something he rarely did because he knew I needed to focus. "This better be important," I said, wiping my hands on my apron. "We're in the middle of the rush." "It is." He looked nervous. Jason Thorne, billionaire tech investor who'd made million-dollar deals without blinking, looked nervous. My heart started hammering. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. He ran a hand through his hair. "Can you take a break?" 5 minutes. I looked at James, who smirked. "Go, boss. We've got this." Suspicious now, I followed Jason out the back door into the alley where this had all started, where he'd first offered me a job that changed my life. The alley had been transformed. String lights hung overhead. Candles lined the brick walls. Rose petals covered the ground. And standing there, looking sheepish and hopeful and absolutely devastating, was the man I loved. "Jason Thorne," I said slowly. "What did you do?" "I told you I'd propose eventually. I'm a man of my word." He pulled a small box from his pocket and dropped to one knee. My vision blurred instantly. "Pepper Torres, you walked into my life at 3 a.m. with a rolling pin and an attitude, and you've been challenging me ever since. You've made me laugh when I thought I'd forgotten how. You've made me taste food and actually feel something again. You've made me believe that surviving is a gift, not a curse. You've made me live." Tears streamed down my face. "I'm not promising you perfection. I'm still a control freak who does crosswords in pen and makes terrible decisions when I'm scared. But I'm promising you honesty, respect, and a lifetime of supporting your dreams while trying not to overshadow them. I'm promising you partnership, laughter, and someone who will always taste your experimental dishes even when they sound terrible." I laughed through my tears. "Pepper Torres, will you marry me?" He opened the box. The ring was stunning, a simple solitaire diamond on a platinum band, elegant without being ostentatious. Exactly my style. Yes, I whispered. Yes, of course yes, you ridiculous man. Jason slid the ring onto my finger, stood, and kissed me like we were the only two people in the world. When we broke apart, I heard applause. My entire staff was watching from the kitchen door, cheering and crying and taking photographs. You told them. I accused. I told James. He told everyone else. Apparently, I'm not as subtle as I thought. You're the least subtle person I know. And you love me anyway. I really do. I looked at the ring, then back at him. So what now? Now. Jason pulled me close. Now we go back inside and you finish dinner service. Then we go home and celebrate. Then we plan a wedding that's completely over the top because I'm a billionaire and you deserve to be spoiled. Then we build a life that's messy and complicated and absolutely perfect. That sounds good. Can we also get another dog? We literally just got Basil 3 months ago. But he needs a friend. Jason laughed, full and genuine and beautiful. Yes. Fine. We can get another dog. We can get 5 dogs. We can start a dog sanctuary if that's what you want. I literally cannot say no to you. Good. Remember that when I want to open a second location. Already planning expansion? The restaurant's only been open 6 months. I'm an ambitious woman. You should know that by now. I do know that. It's one of approximately 8,000 things I love about you. We stood there in the alley, the same place where this story began, surrounded by string lights and candles and the smell of food drifting from Doris's table. Thank you, I said softly. For what? For showing up at 3 a.m. with an impossible offer. For believing in me before I believed in myself. For fighting for us even when I pushed you away. For being exactly the partner I needed even when I didn't know what I needed. Thank you for taking the risk. For seeing past the money and the baggage to the person underneath. For cooking meals that taste like love. For being stubborn enough to refuse to let me self-destruct. He kissed my forehead. For choosing me. Every day. Even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Especially then. Epilogue. 1 year later. I stood in the kitchen of Doris's table, now expanded to include a private dining room and a larger kitchen, supervising 3 line cooks while simultaneously FaceTiming with a literary agent about my cookbook deal. Married life suited me. Jason and I had gotten married in a small ceremony at the restaurant, just family and close friends, with food that told our story and vows that made everyone cry. No media. No photographers. Just us and the people we loved most. We'd honeymooned in New Orleans, eating our way through the French Quarter and visiting the places my grandmother had told me about. I'd cried at Commander's Palace, tasting food that reminded me of her. Jason had held me and let me grieve and celebrate simultaneously. Now, a year later, Doris's table had won the James Beard Award. I'd been named one of Food and Wine's best new chefs. My cookbook, Doris's Table, Recipes for Love and Second Chances, was scheduled for release in the spring. And Jason? Jason had started a foundation in Isabel's name, funding culinary scholarships and supporting small business owners from underrepresented communities. He'd found a way to honor her memory while building toward the future. We'd both learned that you could carry your grief and your joy simultaneously. That moving forward didn't mean forgetting. That love wasn't a finite resource. Loving someone new didn't diminish the love you'd had for someone lost. Chef. James called. We have a situation. I hung up the phone and hurried over. What kind of situation? He grinned and pointed to the dining room. Jason sat at our usual corner table, but he wasn't alone. Beside him sat a little girl, maybe 7 or 8, with dark curly hair and wide eyes. My heart clenched. I walked out to the table, confused. Jason? What's going on? Pepper, this is Zoe. Zoe, this is my wife, Pepper. You're the chef? Zoe asked, her eyes huge. The one who cooks the food that makes people cry. Sometimes, I admitted, sitting down. Zoe, it's nice to meet you. But I'm a little confused about why you're here. Jason took a breath. Zoe is Catherine's daughter. Isabel's niece. Catherine called me a few months ago. She's been having some health issues and needed help finding a good foster placement for Zoe while she gets treatment. My heart stopped. I told her we'd take Zoe. That we'd be her foster family. If you agree. He looked at me with hope and fear and love. I should have asked you first. I know I'm doing that thing again where I make unilateral decisions. But Pepper, I couldn't say no. Not to Isabel's family. Not when we have the space and resources and... Yes, I interrupted. Yes. Yes. Of course yes. Welcome to the family, Zoe. Zoe's face lit up. Really? You want me? We want you, I confirmed, reaching across the table to take her small hand. We definitely want you. Jason's eyes filled with tears. And just like that, our family expanded. That night, after Zoe had fallen asleep in the guest room, soon to be her room, Jason and I sat on our back patio, glasses of wine in hand, staring up at the stars. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For not killing me for making another major life decision without consulting you first. I laughed. Oh, we're going to have a long conversation about that tomorrow. But tonight? Tonight I'm just grateful. For what? For this life. For you. For the fact that we get to give a little girl a safe home while her mom gets healthy. For the fact that my grandmother's dream of a restaurant where people feel loved is real. For second chances. For all of it. Jason pulled me close. I never thought I'd be here. Married. Happy. Planning to foster a child. Living instead of just surviving. Me neither. I thought I'd spend my career fighting for respect in kitchens where men didn't think I belonged. I never imagined I'd have my own restaurant, my own family, my own life built exactly how I wanted it. It's pretty good, isn't it? It's pretty perfect. We sat in comfortable silence, his arm around my shoulders, my head on his chest, listening to the sounds of the night. Hey, Pepper. Jason said eventually. Yeah. What did you learn from this story? I thought about the question, about everything we'd survived, everything we'd built, everything we'd become. I learned that love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone whose broken pieces fit with yours. I learned that second chances are real if you're brave enough to take them. I learned that the best things in life are worth fighting for, even when everyone tells you to give up. I looked up at him. And I learned that sometimes the person who shows up at your back door at 3 a.m. with an impossible offer is exactly what you've been waiting for. That's beautiful. What's your brutal opinion about this story? About us? Brutal opinion? We're messy. We're complicated. We made 1,000 mistakes and we'll make 1,000 more. But we're real. We're honest. And we're building something extraordinary together, not despite the complications, but because of them. And the voice I used to tell this story? Did you like it? I smiled, understanding what he was really asking. Did I like the life we'd built? Did I like the choices we'd made? Did I like us? I loved the voice, I said softly. It told a story about two broken people who found each other at exactly the right moment. About food and love and second chances. About refusing to let fear or public opinion or past trauma dictate your future. It told our story. And I wouldn't change a word. Jason kissed the top of my head. Good. Because I wouldn't either. The end. So, beautiful souls, what did you learn from this story? What's your brutal opinion? Did you love it? Hate it? Cry? Laugh? Feel inspired to take your own 3 a.m. risk? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Tell me where you're watching from. Tell me if you've ever had a moment where you said yes to something terrifying and it changed your life. Tell me if you believe in second chances. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button because I have so many more stories to tell you. Stories about love and loss and food and family and the messy, beautiful business of being human. Until next time, remember, the best things in life usually start with someone showing up at your door with an impossible offer. The question is, will you be brave enough to say yes? I'll see you in the next story.